The first sequence this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 826, Mist. Ren Xiaosu told the big liar, when you leave the fortress, be careful to avoid the battle area between Hozhong and Kong's family. Hozhong has just destroyed the fortress wall in the north, but I don't think their purpose is just this, so be careful and don't run into them. Well, I'll pay attention, said the big liar. At this time, Wang Yun's men had already driven the prison bus out, and also snatched the communication equipment from the prison guards, so that the 5 vehicles could ensure close communication while driving. But Wang Yun was a little confused. Young Marshal, do you mean you won't go with us? Ren Xiaosu explained, there is also a medical team from Wang's family in this fortress. They are very respectable. I can't watch them die in the number 31 fortress. For the people of Wang's family, is it worth it? Wang Yun asked with some doubts. Ren Xiaosu said seriously, some of these people have been busy saving lives all their lives. I can't watch them suffer misfortune. I don't know what Wang's people are. I only know that they are people worthy of respect. The big liar hesitated, but never said anything to persuade him. Ji Xiang patted the big liar on the shoulder and got on the bus with a smile. No matter how many times you fooled me, only now do I think it's right to go to the northwest. Let's go, let's go. Young Marshal, see you in the northwest. Ren Xiaosu finally told the big liar, after the bus leaves barrier number 31, it's best to go south first. Not only will there be people from the fire company coming from the north, but there are also new enemies in the north. I suspect that the enemy is more terrible than you can imagine. Well, I'll pay attention, the big liar said and got on the bus. Ren Xiaosu looked at the 5 buses going away. He turned around and got on the off-road vehicle with Yang Xianjin, ready to rescue Wang Jing and others. I don't know if Wang Run protected Wang Jing according to his instructions. Logically speaking, Wang Jing is a respected medical master of the Wang family. Wang Run should protect him seriously, right? At the same time, the fire company in the north had broken through the blockade of the Kong family and rushed south among the refugees. It must be said that the strategy of Spark was very wise. They first broke down the walls of the fortress to panic all the residents of the fortress, and as a result, a large number of fleeing refugees became their cover. This caused Kong to always have reservations when shooting to stop them. It was not until Spark broke through 2 lines of defense in succession that Kong made up his mind to shoot and kill the civilians together, but it was too late. When the battle completely turned into a street fight, the Kong garrison troops, which had lost the protection of the complete defense line, could no longer pose any threat to the elite decapitation troops of Spark Company. For a while, these people broke up into small groups and marched from different streets. Someone asked in the communication channel, Sir, what is the target now? T5 said coldly, it will take some time for the main force to arrive. The reinforcement station by Kong 40 kilometers away should be arriving soon. Before dawn, we must make the number 31 barrier more chaotic so that they cannot form an effective resistance force. Then what should we do? Asked one person. T5 thought for 10 seconds and finally decided, raid the Kong intelligence agency and knock out their eyes first. The 2 armies are fighting for intelligence first. As long as the Kong intelligence agency is paralyzed first, the Kong will definitely lose this war. As he said this, T5 immediately turned to the location of the Kong intelligence agency. During this period, they encountered 2 more Kong blockades, but they were penetrated by them. At this time, the Kong found that the highly mobile special forces of the Spark Company had no opponents in street fighting. Moreover, Kong observed the movement trajectory of the Spark and found that they were heading for the intelligence agency. After the Spark Company finally broke into the intelligence agency, T5 looked at the corpses on the road, the abandoned vehicles after the explosion, and the empty intelligence agency building. What's going on? T5 was obviously stunned. This time, they were the only Spark troops that entered the number 31 barrier. They wanted to paralyze the intelligence agency, but someone actually beat them to it and knocked down the Kong intelligence agency. Some of his men checked the bodies to verify the identities of the deceased. They had made preparations before coming. 1 minute later, report to the commander, Wang Jiang, the head of Kong's intelligence, has been killed. The new director of the first intelligence department has died. The new director of the 2nd Intelligence Department has died. T5 raised his voice in the communication channel. Attention, all units, there may be another powerful force in this barrier, and they have beheaded the intelligence agency with great precision. I'm afraid that Kong's intelligence agency has disappeared. Who did it? Someone asked in confusion. I'm afraid it's Wang's elite troops. Be careful. If you run into them, avoid them. Destroying Kongs is the most important thing at this time. T5 said in a serious tone. In his opinion, the opponent's strength should be very strong, and there are not a lot of people, otherwise there is no way to destroy an entire intelligence agency in the center of the barrier. This made T5 a little confused, because he had never heard that Wang's strong combat force was nearby. What should we do now? T4 asked in the communication channel. Attack the secret prison, T5 thought and answered. The people in prison there will be enough to give Kong a headache if they are released. But they ran for nearly half an hour and found that the secret prison had become a ruin when they arrived. Suddenly, T5 felt a chill in his heart. How come the elite troops of the Wang family are always one step faster than them? And how many people did the Wang family have? After destroying the intelligence agency, they still had the strength to break into the secret prison? Seeing that the secret prison was destroyed beyond recognition and hundreds of prison guards died tragically in prison, could it be that the Wang family had hidden an independent regiment? Exclamation mark. At this time, the only broken wall of the rampart was the one in the north, and the rest were intact, so the Wang family must not have come in from outside the rampart, and must have been ambushed in the rampart a long time ago. Let's go to another prison, T5081 no longer hesitated. Anyway, their mission was to contain the garrison troops of the Kong family and prevent them from organizing a defensive force. In this rampart number 31, the Wang family was not their enemy. However, when T5 stood outside the ordinary prison, he was shocked. At some point, he even wondered if Wang had really lurked an entire independent regiment in barrier number 31. T5081 was stunned and said, "Is this Kong intelligence agency a bunch of losers? They didn't even know that Wang had lurked so many people in the barrier." However, the sequelae of the destruction of the two prisons had begun to give Kong a headache, especially the group of intelligence operators who had been released from the secret prison. These people could make a batch of bombs by visiting a hardware store, and they could see that barrier number 31 had already exploded. Chapter 827 Ordinary Ren Xiaosu. To be honest, T5081's scalp is numb now. Everything he planned to do has been done by others, and he still can't figure out where the other party is hiding, how many people there are, how many extraordinary people there are, and what they are going to do. This feeling is too bad, and this feeling is very strange. Someone obviously helped him do what he wanted to do, but he couldn't be happy at all. Sir, what should we do now? T4 asked weakly in the communication channel. The sequelae of the release of prisoners from the two prisons have begun to make the Kong family exhausted, and the Sparks don't want to confront the garrison head-on, so they seem to have suddenly become idle. According to the plan, the level of danger after they entered the number 31 barrier this time should be a life-and-death situation. Moreover, one task after another, there is no chance for them to breathe. Every member of the Spark is ready for death and exhaustion, but the result is that they have nothing to do. How can this be justified? Exclamation mark. T5081 said, "No wonder we were suddenly ambushed on the rooftop after entering the barrier, but later we found out that the Kong family didn't know we were coming. It turned out that those rooftop ambushes were not aimed at us. Then we are considered to be taking the blame." A T4 asked in confusion. "Not really," T5081 said with emotion. "Did you notice that when we broke through the northern defense line, the Kong family garrison troops seemed to be slow to react and did not immediately launch a full-scale encirclement and suppression against us? It always felt like they were half a beat slower in reaction. I have such a feeling. Some emergency mobile forces seem to be not well prepared. Now I understand," T5081 said. "This is because the Kong family garrison troops have been receiving alarms from other places and wanted to rush to reinforce us, which resulted in some distraction for us. In fact, even Ren Xiaosu himself didn't know that he did contribute to the destruction of the barrier. In his opinion, the destruction of the barrier was all caused by the fire seed, and it had nothing to do with him. Although he also wanted to dismantle the barrier, wasn't he preempted by the fire seed before he took action? So he can't take the blame this time." T5081 thought for a while. "Let's go. Since what we need to do has been completed, and the barrier has been in chaos, let's go straight to Huanglong and behead Kong Erdong. Although their operation this time is called a decapitation operation, in fact, the decapitation refers to barrier number 31, and there is no intention to kill Kong Erdong. On the one hand, it is unnecessary. After the main force arrives, Kong Erdong will be powerless even if he is alive. On the other hand, it is too troublesome. If they go straight to Kong Erdong, the garrison troops will definitely surround Kong Erdong tightly. Although their special forces are powerful, they can't fight a reinforced brigade. But now, I really have nothing to do. T-5081 thought, since there's nothing to do, let's go and kill Kong Erdong. Anyway, the garrison troops are now dispersed. At present, because of the war in the north of the barrier, all the refugees are desperately fleeing to the south, so that Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin's off-road vehicles are almost blocked on the road. After we receive Wang Jing and the others, we will go directly to the west. I will blow up the gates at that time. The south is blocked. I am afraid that a large number of refugees will be blocked there, Ren Xiaosu said, but it is a bit regrettable that there is no chance to kill Kong Erdong now. Yang Xiaojin nodded. She looked at the fire and refugees outside through the car window. Let's put Kong Erdong aside. The result Wang Shengzi wanted has been achieved. It doesn't matter whether Kong Erdong dies or not. I believe Wang Shengzi must be very surprised. According to Wang Shengzi's plan, it would take a long time for the Kong family to fall into chaos after killing Kong Erdong. Now it is different. It is done in one step. Speaking of which, this can be regarded as a one-stop service. Ren Xiaosu is the dragon crossing the river. When the off-road vehicle drove into the villa area, Ren Xiaosu saw the bodies of the rioters hanging on the roadside. The bodies were bloody and horrible. This should be the work of Wang Run and others, used to warn other rioters, Ren Xiaosu guessed. Apart from Wang Run and others, no one around here should be so cruel. As soon as the car stopped at the door, Ren Xiaosu shouted loudly to the inside of the villa, "Don't shoot, it's me." A surprised voice came from the villa. Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin are back. Wang Jing opened the door and looked at Ren Xiaosu carefully. He didn't ask Ren Xiaosu what he had done, but asked first, "Are you hurt?" "No," Ren Xiaosu laughed and said, "Well, Yang Xiaojin and I just went out for a walk, and we didn't expect this to happen suddenly. As a result, we were stuck on the road and it took us a long time to find the way back." Everyone at the Trinity Society had an expression of "I don't believe you," but no one knew how to refute. Ren Xiaosu didn't see Wang Run, so he looked at Wang Jing. "By the way, no one came to protect you." "Yes, but they received orders and left later," Wang Jing said. "Did you send them?" "Ha ha ha," Ren Xiaosu laughed awkwardly. "How is that possible? I just met them on the road and they said they were here to protect you, Mr. Wang, and I found out by chance. So, everyone pack up and leave quickly. Barrier number 31 is going to be destroyed. If we don't leave, we will be buried with this barrier." At this time, Ren Xiaosu found that the people from the Trinity Society had already packed their luggage and loaded it on the car. After Ren Xiaosu distributed communication equipment to each car, the convoy set off immediately. The convoy drove all the way to the west, and the atmosphere in the car was extremely silent. In the end, Liang Se suddenly asked, "Ren Xiaosu, you?" "It wasn't me, I'm just an ordinary heart surgeon." Ren Xiaosu denied. Liang Se, "I haven't said what I want to ask yet." But at this moment, a row of black convoys passed by the convoy of the Trinity Society. Liang Se was about to say something when he saw Ren Xiaosu staring at the convoy. The black convoy was heading east, very fast, as if it was fleeing. Ren Xiaosu chose the west because there was the Wang family there, but others didn't necessarily have to flee to the west. If they were from the Kong family, fleeing to the east would be the highest priority, because there was another Kong family barrier 120 kilometers away. In this silence, Ren Xiaosu suddenly said to Yang Xiaojin, "You don't have to slow down, I'll go out for a while." Yang Xiaojin asked thoughtfully, "Kong Erdong?" "Yes, it's his license plate number. I guess he doesn't plan to live and die with barrier number 31, and is now preparing to flee." Ren Xiaosu opened the car door and jumped out, rushing all the way to Kong Erdong's convoy. In the vehicles behind the Trinity Society, everyone silently saluted Ren Xiaosu who passed by. Liang Se was speechless. Didn't he just say that he was just an ordinary heart surgeon? After discussing with my wife, I donated 20,000 yuan to the BJ Han Hong Charity Foundation in the name of my husband and I to support the prevention and control of the epidemic in Wuhan. I have been waiting for a reliable donation channel, but many of them are not open and transparent, which makes people feel relieved. Now that there is a reliable channel that dares to disclose even a pack of instant noodles, I should take action. In the interview with Oriental Satellite TV, I mentioned that the original intention of writing the first sequence was that I experienced Wenchuan when I was in the 3rd year of high school. Although I was not in Sichuan, I felt the spirit of unity across the country. At that time, I saw in the news that when one side is in trouble, all sides will support it. I donated my living expenses in the classroom. So I used the story I wrote to tell you that human beings will not be extinct in the face of disasters, but will find joy in suffering and will be strong and brave to support each other and go on. Actually, there was a small official spoiler a long time ago. In the promotional video shot by Hu Jie, I made a request that there was a line that must be read by Mr. Hu Jie himself. I was afraid that others would read it badly. When disaster strikes, hope is the first-order weapon for mankind to face danger. We are united by hope. This is the true meaning of the first order and the real theme of this book. I hope everything will be fine and I will do my best. Reagan's new book on the development of historical officialdom, Counting the Heroes. If you like this kind of book, you can collect it. Chapter 828. 176 Barrier Falls. Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin were in the front of the convoy, so when he jumped out of the passenger seat, the convoy behind him saw it. A middle-aged doctor was driving when he suddenly saw a man jumping out of the car in front of him. He was shocked. Wait, what is Ren Xiaosu going to do? What does he want to do? Wang Jing saw through the car window that Ren Xiaosu was waving at the convoy while running, signaling everyone to keep going. Then everyone in the convoy quickly turned their eyes to the back of the convoy, following Ren Xiaosu. Except for the driver, everyone else even leaned on the back of the seat to see what Ren Xiaosu was going to do. Then, as soon as they turned around, they saw Ren Xiaosu jumping up in their field of vision and landing squarely on the roof of a car in the black convoy. Then, Ren Xiaosu grabbed a black knife from nowhere, held it tightly in both hands, and stabbed it straight into the back seat of the car across the roof. Then Ren Xiaosu turned around and ran without stopping. Everyone in the car could still hear the brakes of the black team. The sharp sound of the tires suddenly locking and rubbing against the ground made people shudder. Wang Jing and others could still hear someone in the car screaming in pain, "Boss! Boss, what's wrong with you?" At this time, Ren Xiaosu did not hesitate, and caught up with the fast-moving team again and got into the car in front. Everything happened in a flash. Liang Se and Meng Nan in the back seat of the car in front were both stunned. They looked at Ren Xiaosu in the passenger seat as if nothing had happened. Liang Se murmured and asked, "I remember that Miss Xiaojin seemed to have mentioned the name Kong Erdong just now." "Yes," Ren Xiaosu responded calmly. "So you killed Kong Erdong? You killed the boss of Kongs?" Liang Se exclaimed. Ren Xiaosu turned around and looked at Liang Se with an expression that asked, "Why are you reacting so strongly?" Liang Se couldn't stand it anymore. Obviously, his reaction was the most normal. It was abnormal for you to be so calm after killing Kong Erdong. Liang Se looked back again. They were getting farther and farther away from the black convoy. Kong Erdong's followers on the convoy got off the car with an expression that asked, "Who am I?" They didn't plan to chase Ren Xiaosu. Now, everyone in the Trinity Society team understood that Ren Xiaosu was not here for medical exchanges, but to kill people. But Wang Jing couldn't figure it out. Why would a killer be so proficient in cardiac surgery? And so good at treating trauma? "Where are we going now?" Liang Se asked. Ren Xiaosu said without hesitation, "Back to Wang's. Now the Kongs is finished." When the war came to barrier number 31, Kong Erdong, the highest officer of the Kongs, had no intention of coexisting with the Kongs, so the end of this consortium was doomed. Even if there is a successor, Ren Xiaosu does not think that anyone can turn the tide. You know, beside the Kong family, there is not only Huazhong, but also Wang's troops stationed on the border. At this time, Huazhong's special forces were chasing clues about Kong Erdong. They first went to Kong Erdong's official residence, but found that it was empty and there was no trace of him. Later, they caught two people and learned that Kong Erdong had quietly left 10 minutes ago. In order to hide, Kong Erdong did not even take the garrison with him, wanting the garrison to continue to delay Huazhong's troops. Then when Huazhong chased Kong Erdong's convoy, Kong Erdong's followers had already scattered, leaving only the car that Kong Erdong was riding in and Kong Erdong's body. T-5081 silently observed the scene and found that Kong Erdong died because someone stabbed his head from the roof of the car, not because someone was intercepting him in a large-scale operation. How many people are there on the other side? T-5081 asked in confusion. It can't be that only one or two people have done so many things. Suddenly, the T4 soldier from the communication group beside him came over and said, "There's a call from above." T4 handed him the microphone of the communication equipment, and T-5081 took the phone. "Sir? This is T-5081. What's the situation?" The person on the other end of the phone asked. "The northern wall of the rampart has been breached by us. The Kong intelligence agency has been wiped out. All the prisoners in the secret prison have been released. All the prisoners in the ordinary prison have been released, and Kong Erdong is dead." T-5081 said. "So smooth?" The person on the other end of the phone seemed a little surprised. He didn't expect that this special forces unit not only completed all their established combat plans, but also killed Kong Erdong. T-5081 thought for a moment and explained, "In fact, except for breaking through the rampart wall, we didn't do anything. When we went to the intelligence agency's station, they were all dead. When we went to the secret prison, it had already been breached." T5 explained for a long time, and the person on the other end of the phone asked in confusion, "Then can I understand it this way, except for breaking through the northern wall, you didn't do anything?" There was silence on both sides of the phone for a few seconds, and T5 answered with difficulty, "Yes. Do you know who did it?" "I don't know." "Okay, stay in rampart number 31. The main force is about to arrive 5 kilometers north of the rampart. When the encirclement is completed, you will cooperate with the troops in the west to open the gate, and then help the main force complete the occupation of rampart number 31. After saying that, the other party hung up the phone. T5 wanted to curse after hanging up the phone. He wanted to claim these credits, but if someone came out to admit these things in the future, his position in Spark would be in danger. Fortunately, everything went smoothly. In any case, rampart number 31 has become Spark's possession. However, at this moment, the northern tribe seemed to be on time. When the fire was attacking Kong's family, they began to attack barrier number 176. First, the experimental body under the Black Robe Wizard destroyed the defense line of Wang's garrison, and then thousands of strong men appeared from the horizon. It took only 15 minutes for the other side to rush to the outside of the barrier. The torn defense line could not stop the northern tribe from entering the city. The Wang's garrison quickly gathered again in the city, trying to pull these tall and strong northern tribes into street fighting, and then wear them down bit by bit. But surprisingly, these people were able to break through the wall with their bodies. Each person in this tribe was like a small tank, carrying a huge axe and rushing around, causing the defense line formed by Wang's family in a hurry to collapse again. Ordinary automatic rifles could only shoot a little blood on them, and most of the bullets were stuck on the surface of the skin. The heavy machine guns relied heavily on the front line and vision, and barrier number 176 fell. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 829, Encountering the Main Force of Fire. 176 far exceeded everyone's imagination. In just 3 hours, the entire barrier was littered with corpses. Just a month ago, barrier number 176 also fell, but Yan Luoyun restrained his subordinates and did not kill them indiscriminately. The tribe that massacred the city was also ordered to be hanged by Yan Luoyun. But this time was different. This time, the northern tribes went on a killing spree in barrier number 176, harvesting all lives in a way that was almost like a massacre of the city. Amid the wailing, barrier number 176 turned into purgatory on Earth. In the past, there would always be long white smoke rising from the chimneys of the factories in the barrier, but today there is no white smoke. Instead, there is ubiquitous black smoke floating in the air, and there are fires everywhere in the barrier. More than 100 years after the emergence of the Barrier Alliance, something like a massacre of the city finally happened. The Wang family garrison did not fight to the death with these northern tribes. They only had time to see the other side plant the white bear flag at the highest point in the center of the fortress, and then they immediately retreated to the south, trying to join the main force of Wang family reinforcements. Originally, the garrison of Fortress No. 176 was not too large, and the speed of Wang family mobilizing troops to the north was still a step slow. In the north, the big man in charge of commanding the vanguard of the Expeditionary Corps walked into the city with his giant axe in hand. He looked at the adjutant beside him. "Where's Black Robe? Why can't we see Black Robe? He is responsible for coordinating in the fortress, but we didn't see him after we entered the fortress, and later the death row prisoners under his control disappeared as well," said the adjutant. The big man, who was nearly 2 meters tall, sneered, "He is a coward. I don't know why the general likes him and indulges him so much." The adjutant's face became serious and reminded, "Captain Valentin, you must never question the general's decision in public again." "Go find him," Valentin said. "Jaeger, if you can't figure out what he is doing before sunset, go back to your company." Jaeger didn't say anything else. He took the giant axe and led a team of people away, while Valentin sat on a ruin and admired the ruins of the No. 176 fortress. This is the masterpiece of the Expeditionary Corps. At this time, there were too many casualties in the No. 176 fortress, so no one would notice that the gray experimental subjects did not kill everyone they met, but captured some people and took them to an underground laboratory. The incandescent light in the underground laboratory was dim, and the experimental subjects shrouded in black robes were standing in front of an operating table. Hundreds of humans were tied to the ground and screamed in fear. But no one could hear their cries for help. The Wang family garrison was also defeated, and no one would come to rescue them even if they heard them. Dozens of strong experimental subjects were crawling around in the huge laboratory to prevent humans from escaping. Black Robe was a little surprised. He didn't expect that he could find such a well-equipped laboratory in this No. 176 fortress. However, it seemed that the forces in this fortress only had equipment, and the research conducted was worthless. But now it was different. This laboratory became important because of his arrival. In Black Robe's eyes, this was probably the only thing that was worthy of praise for the useless fortress managers. He picked up a syringe and slowly pushed all the small bubbles in the syringe out of the needle, and then walked towards a young woman. Black Robe squatted beside the woman and laughed hoarsely. "As a new subject of my kingdom, you should feel honored." The woman begged, "Please let me go. I still have parents to take care of. I don't want to die." "It doesn't matter. You will forget these human emotions soon," Black Robe said. Suddenly, the woman saw the gray face under the black robe, and immediately retreated back in fear. However, because her hands and feet were bound, she could only struggle in vain. She shouted, "Monster! You are a monster too." The Black Robe slowly stood up. The word monster sounded particularly harsh to him. He let the woman in front of him struggle continuously, but he never said a word. Finally, he waved his hand, and the experimental subject next to him immediately pounced on the woman and tore her to pieces. The blood splattered on the floor of the laboratory, which was extremely terrifying. The Black Robe walked silently to the next person. He injected drugs into all humans one by one, and then the blood vessels of those people slowly turned gray, as if there was a strange gray worm crawling in their blood vessels. Then, the skin of these people began to turn white and gray, and they looked abnormally sick under the incandescent light. Suddenly, an experimental subject came in from the door. It crawled in front of the Black Robe and roared. The Black Robe frowned and said, "Take them out of here from another exit and wait for my call in the wilderness." As he said that, he walked out of the laboratory and returned to the ground. Looking at Jaeger's figure coming, he asked hoarsely, "Are you looking for me?" "Commander Valentin needs to know what you are doing," Jaeger said coldly. The Black Robe explained calmly, "Just a tour." "Really?" Jaeger ordered his men to search the laboratory behind the Black Robe and the underground building, but found nothing. After getting the reply, Jaeger said, "Captain Valentin said that you'd better not play any tricks under his nose." The Black Robe laughed hoarsely, "Don't be nervous, don't be so afraid of me. The general trusts me, doesn't he? Instead of coming to me, it's better to chase the fleeing Wang's garrison. I think this is the biggest mistake you made, because they will pass the news as soon as possible, and then bring more Central Plains people back here. By then, even a strong expeditionary corps will bleed into a river, and it will be a tragic battle." Jaeger turned and left. To be honest, he didn't want to stay with a Black Robe for even a second. When talking to him, he felt like his skin was entangled by a poisonous snake. The sticky and cold feeling was disgusting. The convoy of the Trinity Society escaped the chaotic area of the 31st barrier smoothly. When they arrived at the western gate, the gate had been opened at some point. It seemed that it was not only Kong or Dong who escaped, but also a large number of barrier managers who had become deserters. Ren Xiaosu was looking at a map in the co-pilot seat and said, "We'd better not go back the same way. I suspect we will encounter a large number of Kong's deserters there. Since the spark core can reach barrier number 31, then barrier number 32 must be finished. At this time, there are probably thousands of Kong's deserters, which will cause great trouble to all the refugees. So we will go around to the south and try to avoid the route of defeat that deserters easily choose." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Xiaojun beside him stepped on the brakes, and all the convoys of the Trinity Society stopped at once. Ren Xiaosu looked up and saw a group of spark cores surrounding him. This spark company, I don't know when it has completed the encirclement of barrier number 31. Chapter 830, Fire Retreats. The spark force in front of him was not just a small group of advanced troops. Ren Xiaosu could even see a continuous stream of troop carriers and mechanized troops. This was one of the main forces of the spark. Because there was no source of intelligence, Ren Xiaosu didn't know when the spark had taken down the 32nd rampart. He guessed that the 32nd rampart had fallen at nightfall last night, and then the spark immediately attacked the 31st rampart in a blitzkrieg. This was closely linked to T5's plan to lead the special forces to complete the decapitation, and the purpose was to catch the Kong family off guard. Yang Xiaojun stepped on the brakes and asked, "Leave?" "I can't leave," Ren Xiaosu sighed. If it were just the two of them, they could just leave now, but they still had a Trinity Society led by Wang Jing behind them. If the two of them just ran away like this, Wang Jing and the others would have a miserable end. The spark force was already in front of them. Even if they drove away in the wilderness with a good off-road vehicle, they couldn't escape the opponent's mechanized troops. It was a pity that his steam train was still sealed, otherwise how could he fall into such a dilemma? The doctors on the train were all panicked. When had they ever seen such a scene? Someone kept asking Wang Jing on the car intercom, "Old man, what should we do now? Why don't we go and talk to them? We are just doctors. What does the war between Huazhong and Kong have to do with our Wang's medical team?" At this time, Wang Jing didn't know what to do. Even though he had seen many storms, it was nothing in front of war. However, he immediately said through the communication equipment, "Everyone, pay attention, don't reveal the identities of Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun. Remember, they are members of the medical team, they are just two ordinary doctors. Everyone, if anyone deliberately leaks this information to Huazhong, don't blame me for being ruthless when I return to Wang's." Ren Xiaosu fell silent when he heard Wang Jing's voice. He didn't expect that the other party would still think of protecting himself at the first time. At this time, everyone saw Ren Xiaosu suddenly open the car door, then raised his hands above his head and walked towards the troops of the Spark Company, shouting loudly, "We are the medical team of the Wang's Trinity Society. We come to Kong's for medical exchanges. Please don't hurt us. We can surrender all our weapons. We are not combatants. Please don't kill innocent people." Everyone in the car was shocked. Seeing that the soldiers with live ammunition on the Spark side pointed their guns at the convoy, none of them had the courage to face the main force of the Spark alone. But this young man had courage that ordinary people didn't have. Yang Xiaojun glanced at Ren Xiaosu, and slowly got out of the car and raised his hands to indicate that he had no weapons. Ren Xiaosu was also very nervous at this time. He was very worried that the main force of the Spark would shoot and kill all suspected targets without hesitation. After all, it was wartime now, and nothing could be said for sure. At the back of the convoy, Wang Jing took the lead to get out of the car, and the automatic rifles given to them by Wang Run were also thrown on the ground. Two combat teams of the Spark force approached quickly. One combat team was responsible for guarding all the people on the Trinity Society side, while the other team carefully searched all the vehicles. They even cut open the seats of the vehicles with tactical daggers, and finally found that the convoy was full of medical equipment and medicines. A Spark officer then slowly walked over. He saw Wang Jing at a glance. "Are you the head of this medical team?" "Yes, I am," Wang Jing said neither servilely nor arrogantly. "I am the vice president of the Trinity Society and the dean of the First Barrier Hospital of Wang's number 62 barrier." We came here as a medical exchange routine of the Trinity Society, but we didn't expect a war to happen. Your ID? The Spark officer asked. Ren Xiaosu was relieved when he heard the other party say this. At least the attitude revealed by the other party now did not seem to be about killing innocent people. He was also gambling when he got off the car before. In the past, Ren Xiaosu always had two completely different impressions of the Spark. One was that he would do anything to complete the task, and the other was that he would stand up when facing the justice of mankind. It seemed very contradictory. He thought to himself, since there is no way to escape directly by violence, then he should be honest about the identity of the medical team and see what the Spark will decide. If the other party is going to attack, then he can only try his best to fight his way out. Wang Jing handed his ID to the Spark officer, who took a look and said, in principle, we will not harm medical personnel, but how can I be sure that you are all medical workers? Can the ID be forged? Wang Jing was a little embarrassed. Or you can send someone to assess us? I believe all of us can pass the assessment. Suddenly, an officer trotted to the side of the Spark officer and whispered something. The Spark officer suddenly changed his face and immediately said to the adjutant next to him, gather all these doctors on a truck, and everyone will return to the north immediately. Ren Xiaosu was stunned. What was going on? Why was the main force of the Spark going back to the north and not occupying barrier number 31? However, the officer returned Wang Jing's ID to Wang Jing. You have been temporarily conscripted. From now on, you are not allowed to act without authorization. Someone in the Trinity Society was anxious. Why do we have to go north? I have shown you the ID. We are just doctors, and we can't fight. The Spark officer said coldly, a new war has broken out in the north. The number 176 fortress was massacred. My Spark has entered the first level of combat readiness. It happens that there are wounded in the war between our army and the Kong family, and the medical force accompanying the army is not enough. You can all just focus on saving the dying and the wounded in our army. It's okay to treat a disease anywhere, don't you agree? Someone asked doubtfully, isn't number 176 fortress the Wang family's territory? What does it have to do with your Spark? The officer glanced at the person who spoke coldly. This time, the enemies are foreign. It is necessary for my Spark to make them pay the price in blood for the Central Plains people who died in number 176 fortress. After that, the officer jumped on a military off-road vehicle and galloped to the north. Then 2 combat teams escorted the people of the Trinity Society onto a troop transport truck and headed north. Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun looked at each other. They looked outside the truck. Barrier number 31 was getting farther and farther away from them. What kind of war made Huazhong give up barrier number 31, which was within their reach? Did this group of people come here in the middle of the night just to give Kong a Valentine's Day surprise? Wait, Ren Xiaosu suddenly remembered that Wang Shengzi mentioned the enemy in the north of the grassland. But barrier number 176 is not next to Huazhong. Why does Huazhong look so vengeful that he can give up even huge benefits so decisively? It's the beginning of the month, please give me a guaranteed monthly ticket. I wish you all good health and a peaceful life. Chapter 831 Hidden in the Fire. The troop transport trucks heading north were shaking, and the cold wind would pour in through the holes in the tarpaulin on the trucks, making everyone feel the freezing cold night. The doctors of the Trinity Society had fallen asleep. Ren Xiaosu looked at the long convoy of the Spark troops behind them. The beams of car lights kept swaying in the dark, rising and falling with the bumps on the ground. Perhaps the Spark felt that the doctors had no fighting power, and all the weapons had been confiscated, so there was no need to worry about them causing any trouble. Or perhaps the Spark had already confirmed the identity and purpose of the Trinity Society through intelligence means. In short, the Spark had not even arranged guards for Wang Jing and the others. At this time, the Spark himself did not know what kind of person he had brought into the Spark troops. To be honest, Ren Xiaosu, who was kind-hearted, really didn't want to stay in the Huazhong team and harm them, but Huazhong disagreed. Huazhong had been on the road for 3 consecutive days, almost without sleep the entire time. Each car was equipped with 3 drivers, responsible for driving 24 hours a day and 3 shifts. Every day, the troops would only rest for an hour when they had dinner, and then continue to set off. Wang Jing and others were just ordinary doctors, and they couldn't stand such torment. They started to have a fever the next day, but their medicines were confiscated, and they couldn't treat Wang Jing at all. Just when everyone was frowning, Ren Xiaosu gritted his teeth and found the officer of fire during the army's rest time. The other party looked at Ren Xiaosu and asked, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Ren Xiaosu secretly handed over a watch and said, "The weather is too cold, and someone on our side is sick with a fever. Can you give me 13 blankets? After all, we are now military doctors, and we will have to treat your comrades in the team in the future. It's not cost-effective to die on the road now." As a result, the other party took a look at the watch and handed it back to Ren Xiaosu. "We were negligent in this matter. We forgot to distribute the marching equipment to you. I will have someone send it to you later." Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect the other party to return the watch. You know, watches can be regarded as one of the currencies these days. Although not as hard as gold, they can be exchanged for money in pawn shops, and they are very valuable. Seeing that the other party didn't seem to be particularly difficult to talk to, he asked tentatively, "Sir, we haven't fought a war either. Will following you to the front line like this hinder you?" The fire officer was amused. "You are so weak and you want to go to the front line? Don't worry, you won't be sent to the front line. 4 days later, I will send you to the temporary clinic behind the front line as planned, and the war will not affect you. We recruited you not to let you go to the war, but to let you do what you are best at." "Okay, thank you, you are so right. How can we, who are weak and powerless, go to the front line?" Ren Xiaosu expressed his gratitude. However, Ren Xiaosu secretly thought to himself that what doctors have to do is to devote their limited lives to the infinite medical cause, and what he is best at is to send all limited lives away. Thinking about it this way, what everyone does really has something in common, and it is all related to limited life. At a certain moment, he also wanted to go to the front line to see if the heads of those northern tribes were tough enough. Half an hour later, a soldier from the fire seeds not only brought more than 10 blankets, but also 6 antibiotics. The soldier said coldly, "You'd better pray that you don't get sick. Medicines are scarce. You won't be able to use them when we fight with the people in the north." This surprised Ren Xiaosu a little. Not only did the other party refuse to accept his watch, but they also gave him a little surprise. Originally, Ren Xiaosu didn't plan to ask for medicine, because he had it in his own space and could feed it to Wenjing secretly. After everyone wrapped themselves in blankets, they looked at Ren Xiaosu with a little gratitude. They knew very well that no matter what Ren Xiaosu's purpose was in coming to the Kong family, the fire seeds would attack barrier number 31. If it weren't for Ren Xiaosu, they might have died when the rioters harassed the villa area. Now it was Ren Xiaosu who had to bite the bullet and negotiate with the fire seeds. For a while, Ren Xiaosu, the youngest, became the backbone of everyone after Wang Jing fell ill. During these 3 days, what was even more exaggerated was that Sima Gang and Liang Sen, because of motion sickness, lay on the backrest of the truck bed and vomited for a whole day. They didn't vomit anymore, and then they began to slowly adapt to this bumpy truck. Earlier, the two of them didn't feel anything when they were off-roading, but the troop transport truck was different, especially when they were walking on a bumpy road. There were even craters on the road. You can imagine how fierce the war between Huazihong and Kong was before. When Liang Sen and Sima Gang were vomiting, Ren Xiaosu could see the driver of the car behind them laughing, with a look of gloating like an old soldier looking at a new recruit. In fact, this also surprised Ren Xiaosu. In the past, he thought Huazihong was a group of emotionless war machines, but now, Ren Xiaosu always felt that these people were not much different from other people. However, being in the Huazihong troops also made Ren Xiaosu unhappy. Every day when he went to get food, he had to wait until all the Huazihong combatants had finished eating before they could go to get food. But the 1-hour rest time of the fire troops was almost over. Sometimes the kitchen team would collect meals in advance in order not to delay the marching speed, so Ren Xiaosu and his men could not get any meals at all, and could only hope that the next meal would be quicker. What made Ren Xiaosu speechless was that it was not someone who deliberately made things difficult for them, but that the other party had this habit. Not to mention that they could not get meals. Even some fire troop soldiers who were delayed on the road because of car repairs did not have hot meals when they arrived late. The requirements for time in each combat sequence of the fire troops were extremely strict. On the way, Ren Xiaosu secretly stuffed a piece of chocolate into Yang Xiaojin's mouth, and Yang Xiaojin stuffed it into her mouth when no one was paying attention. Because he could not explain the source of food, Ren Xiaosu could not give food to others. Although they often could not get meals, Yang Xiaojun never worried that she would be hungry. She knew that Ren Xiaosu had a lot of things hidden on him. No matter where he went, Ren Xiaosu had prepared them. It was as if Ren Xiaosu was carrying a warehouse on him. He could take out pig legs, chocolate, and small biscuits for literary purposes, and grenades, heavy machine guns, and playing cards for military purposes. Yes, there are playing cards. After seeing the power of the poker, Yang Xiaojun believes that when playing cards appear in Ren Xiaosu's hands, what everyone should do is not to ask the landlords to fight for the landlords, but to evacuate the crowd first. I heard from the fire officer that it will take another 4 days to reach the northern front. Ren Xiaosu leaned on the tarpaulin of the truck bed and said to everyone, "By then, we will be arranged in a temporary clinic behind the front line, so we don't have to worry about going to the battlefield." Sorry, my chronic gastritis suddenly flared up. There's only one chapter today. I don't dare to go to the hospital for an IV drip yet. Chapter 832 Special Treatment. Not having to go to the front line is the best news, Wang Jing said weakly. He had just taken antibiotics today, and Ren Xiaosu had even made him some hot water, so he felt much better. He looked at Ren Xiaosu, who had returned to his harmless appearance after the battle at the barrier. If they hadn't seen him perform a craniotomy on Kong Erdong, they would have thought that Ren Xiaosu was just an ordinary heart surgeon. Suddenly someone sighed, "I'm so hungry. If we can't get food, we'll starve to death here before we get to the clinic." Ren Xiaosu, do you have any other ideas? There's nothing we can do, Sima Gang said listlessly, wrapped in a blanket. You all saw it. Ren Xiaosu went to line up every time, but was not allowed to get food. I see many Spark soldiers can't get food. I'm not blaming Ren Xiaosu, the person who spoke quickly explained. What do you think of me? Xiaosu has done a lot for us. I just think he has a lot of ways and I want to see if he has any good ideas. Although everyone is an adult, when they encounter a thorny survival problem, they can't help but hope that Ren Xiaosu can think of some solutions. However, Sima Gang looked at Ren Xiaosu. Xiaosu, you don't have to worry. We can eat almost one meal a day. We should be able to make it to the clinic, and we will definitely be able to eat by then. Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and said, I'd better go and think of a solution. If I go hungry for 4 days and sleep in the truck bed and get cold every day, there will definitely be problems. On normal days, they would be hungry for a few days, but after traveling by boat and car, they would be hungry and cold, and maybe a few more people would fall ill. As he said this, he took advantage of the break of the fire troops to go to the fire troops officer again. The other party was reading a newspaper sent from somewhere in his car. When Ren Xiaosu approached, no one even stopped him. The soldiers of the fire troops really treated them as doctors who were powerless. At this time, Ren Xiaosu found that the fire troops had an advantage that others did not have. That is, their commanding officers all had strong physical fitness, even to the extent that they could not be killed by guns like T5, which could avoid the sudden death of the commander and cause a rout in many cases. The fire troops officer heard the footsteps and looked up at Ren Xiaosu. Is everything okay? Is Mr. Wang Jing feeling better? Better, thank you for the antibiotics sent by someone, Ren Xiaosu said. The fire troops officer glanced at Ren Xiaosu. Don't thank me, just from a rational point of view, to avoid doctors getting sick, doctors will save more of my comrades in future wars. I don't know how to address the commander. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked. P5092, the Spark officer said with a smile. This name may be unfamiliar to you. Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. He knew T5, but it was the first time he saw P5. It turned out that the command sequence within Spark began with the letter P, and this officer's suffix was 092, so he must be a person of high status within Spark. At this time, P5092 looked at Ren Xiaosu and became curious. I have verified your identity, but what I am curious about is that you are just a resident doctor in your team, and your status is not high, but you are the one who handles all the things. Why don't other older people come to me? Aren't you afraid of us? The people of Spark knew that they had been demonized in the outside world for a long time, and they didn't feel wronged. After all, their style of doing things has always been incompatible with other organizations. They only pursue results and don't ask about the process. Therefore, normal people feel fear towards Spark. But P5092 suddenly found that the boy in front of him did not seem to be very afraid of him, and he had come to see him twice, just like neighbors visiting each other casually. At this time, Ren Xiaosu explained, I am also afraid of you, but of course the errands will be done by us, the younger generation. P5092 smiled and said, I don't believe this explanation. I think you are more responsible and braver than them. Tell me, what do you want to do this time? Ren Xiaosu said, since we have been recruited as military doctors, can we be issued formal military uniforms? No need to give us military ranks, just military uniforms will be fine. P5092 was a little confused, what do we need military uniforms for? To wait, Ren Xiaosu said concisely and clearly, if we don't wear military uniforms, we have to wait until other soldiers have finished their meals before we can go to get meals. P5092 laughed, it's just for this matter. Eating is a very important matter, Ren Xiaosu said seriously, you just said it. From a rational point of view, ensuring that there are no problems with military doctors will save more of your comrades in the future. P5092 nodded, I can't give you the military uniform. This is a matter of principle. But I will pass it on. From now on, you don't have to wait for all the soldiers to get their meals. But remember, it's only for you. Ren Xiaosu suddenly bent down and picked up a watch from the ground. Hey, is this the watch you lost, sir? This time P5 did not refuse. Instead, he put the watch on his wrist and asked, I see you have other things to do. Yes, Ren Xiaosu said, I'm on the road these days. Can you let me see the newspaper you've read? P5092 thought for a while and said, no problem. As he said that, he handed the newspaper in his hand to Ren Xiaosu. After Ren Xiaosu thanked him and turned to leave, the adjutant came over and said, Sir, why did you agree to so many requests from this kid? P5092 smiled and said, I don't know either. I just think he's a little special and I want to make a good relationship with him. Haven't you noticed that he's not afraid of us at all? No matter how much he pretends to be, his eyes can't fool me. His pupils have never shrunk. The adjutant asked in confusion, could he be a spy? Spy? P5092 laughed and said, look at how thin he is, how could he be a spy? Besides, doctors are too professional and are not the best disguise for spies. Go and inform him that he can eat with our soldiers in the future. On the way back, Ren Xiaosu suddenly saw a group of people coming from the south to the temporary rest camp. It seemed that there were quite a lot of people. The unit that had recruited them before should have been just one of the main forces responsible for the encirclement from the west, and now other units should have caught up. But what surprised Ren Xiaosu was that there seemed to be more refugees in the team. He didn't know if they were temporarily recruited by the Spark Company like himself. Ren Xiaosu roughly counted the number of people. There were probably more than 600 refugees in this group. A small number of them wore glasses and looked like intellectuals. Another small number carried toolboxes in their hands, like skilled workers in the fortress. As for the others, Ren Xiaosu couldn't tell. Chapter 833 Prepare for a rainy day. One by one, the troop carriers entered the temporary station. This time, the rest time was longer than before, lasting for 4 hours. The fire troops seemed to plan to assemble before getting back on the road. At this time, tens of thousands of fire troops had already assembled on the road to the north. If you stand higher and look back, the temporary station is as vast as the sea, and the stretching convoys are endless. Only by seeing it with your own eyes can you understand how spectacular tens of thousands of complete troops are. And these people rushed all the way to the south, and after taking down the most difficult barriers number 32 and 31 of the Kong family, they ignored the benefits at hand and returned to the north. More than a dozen troop carrier trucks carrying more than 600 refugees stopped next to the truck that Ren Xiaosu and his group were riding. If nothing unexpected happened, the refugees would be transported together. Ren Xiaosu looked at the refugees of different identities. The only thing in common was that they all looked tired. In comparison, these people were much worse off than Ren Xiaosu and his group. Not to mention whether there were blankets, even the seats were a bit crowded. There were only a dozen people in Ren Xiaosu's truck, which was spacious, and more than 50 people were squeezed into a truck bed, so everyone had to huddle. Thinking of this, Ren Xiaosu went back to find the driver in charge of their truck and quietly stuffed a watch into his pocket. You three have worked hard driving for us these days. We don't have anything valuable on us. We are grateful to you three for the watches we brought with us. The three Spark soldiers were not as generous as the officers. Their salaries were not much, so they were very happy to get a watch for free. Ren Xiaosu had his own way of giving watches. It was not appropriate to give gold bars. Although he had a lot of gold on him, it would be easy for people to notice this thing if he gave it away. Who knows if you have any gold hidden on you? So it would easily bring disaster. Giving medicine? This was not appropriate either. Although Ren Xiaosu also brought some antibiotics as hard currency, he wanted to keep them as a backup as the war was about to start. Therefore, giving watches as gifts became the best choice. First, it was easy to explain the origin, and second, it was easy for the other party to cash it out after receiving it. Wang Fuge had told him this at the beginning. Ren Xiaosu took note of it and paid attention to it. Earlier, when he was at the black market, he bought dozens of them at once, waiting for this moment. The three Spark soldiers were also quite surprised, and even had the interest to chat with Ren Xiaosu. Before the Spark troops set off again after resting, refugees in several nearby cars saw that Ren Xiaosu's car was empty, so they immediately rushed over to take seats, thinking that they could finally sit more spaciously. However, before they could climb onto the truck bed, Ren Xiaosu kicked them off. The kicked middle-aged man fell to the ground with a rage. "What are you doing?" Ren Xiaosu said with a smile, "This is our car, you can go wherever you want." "What do you mean your car?" There were more than 10 people behind the middle-aged man, and they were very confident. "More than 10 of you occupy a car, why?" The middle-aged man shouted, but Ren Xiaosu was unmoved, so the middle-aged man began to complain to the fire soldiers. He went to find the 3 fire soldiers who were responsible for Xiaosu's car and pretended to be wronged. "Sirs, the prisoners in your car are too arrogant, we just want." Before he finished speaking, the soldier sitting in the driver's seat said coldly, "Get out, or I will beat out your lunch." As soon as this was said, the other refugees were all surprised. This fire soldiers clearly sided with Ren Xiaosu. Sima Gang and the others looked at Ren Xiaosu in surprise, thinking that they didn't know when Ren Xiaosu bribed the people of fire. The fact that Ren Xiaosu gave the watch just now was very secretive, and even they didn't know. Wang Jing was still sick, and he just smiled weakly. "You are not old, I don't know where you get so many thoughts from." Ren Xiaosu laughed cheerfully, "If you don't have many thoughts when you are away from home, you won't live long. Isn't this also to make us all more comfortable?" In fact, this is the meaning of Ren Xiaosu handing over the watch in advance. In the fire army, no matter how arrogant you are, you can't do it. Someone has to turn a blind eye. It's just like the head of the cell in the prison. The head of the cell is also a prisoner but can manage other prisoners, but this requires the tacit consent of the prison guards. Ren Xiaosu didn't regard himself as a prisoner, but he couldn't take Wang Jing away directly, so he had to seek the best result within the rules. He had plenty of gold, and he could buy another watch after giving it away. Although Ren Xiaosu was greedy for money, he never saved money that should be spent. Even if he was temporarily conscripted, he didn't plan to wrong himself too much. The troop transport truck started, and the refugees outside the truck looked at Ren Xiaosu and his friends, talking and laughing. The soldiers escorting them had already gotten off the truck and were cursing, "Hurry up and get on the truck, don't waste time here." Someone whispered to the middle-aged man, "I think that guy must have bribed the people from Huazhen. Why don't we send something out?" The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. "What to send? What valuables do we have? Watch. Do you know how much my watch costs? How can I give it to someone from Huazhen?" The middle-aged man climbed onto the truck indignantly and continued to squeeze in with everyone. At this time, Wang Jing looked at Ren Xiaosu. He realized that Ren Xiaosu had brought a newspaper with him when he came back. "Where did you get this newspaper? Which newspaper is it from?" "From Hope Media," Ren Xiaosu explained. "I asked for it from the officer from Huazhen." Everyone was even more surprised. It had only been a few days, but Ren Xiaosu had become so familiar with the officers from Huazhen that he could even ask for a newspaper from them. Asking for blankets or something can be understood as a basic need, but asking for newspapers seems to be a step closer. Ren Xiaosu explained, "And I can queue up with the Spark soldiers to get food in the future. When the time comes, you don't have to move. I will bring the lunchboxes back for everyone to eat." The lunchboxes for marching and fighting are rectangular aluminum containers with lids. Ren Xiaosu can carry more than 10 of them stacked up. Although the officer said that only he could get food, he didn't say how many meals he could get, right? When Ren Xiaosu said this, everyone was overjoyed, and everyone had an idea in their minds, as if there was nothing in the world that this boy couldn't solve. Yang Xiaojun sat in the car hugging her knees, watching Ren Xiaosu talking to the doctors with a smile. In fact, she also had vanity and a girlish heart, but she didn't like jewelry or everything prosperous. Yang Xiaojun just wanted others to know how powerful the person she liked was, and that person was the only boy in the world. Chapter 834 You Don't Deserve It. On the way to continue their journey, Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun gathered together to read the newspaper they had just received. As a result, Ren Xiaosu was stunned at the first glance, because the whole page was about Wang's garrison on the border. After the fire was evacuated, they suddenly launched an attack on Kong's, and occupied 2 ramparts in a row in one day. The Kong's defenders had no intention of fighting, and the 2 ramparts did not even resist, and directly opened the city to surrender. The surrender should be the result of Wang's long-term private operation. It is said that someone has been trying to lobby the highest military and administrative officers of the 2 ramparts, but the boss of Kong's previous family is still there, and the 2 did not reply to Wang. Now the entire Kong family is in chaos, and the 2 gave up resistance when they saw that it was impossible to save the situation. After that, Wang left the garrison and set out to the north to meet the enemy. At this time, Kong was still in Wang's pocket. The 2 ramparts were obstacles on Wang's way east. As long as these 2 ramparts were taken, Wang's second expedition to the east would be smooth and there would be no difficulty. In the news, the media hoped to detail the massacre of the 176th fortress, the enemy coming from the north, the fire going north to meet the enemy and giving up the attack on the Kong family, and the Wang family attacking the Kong family. There was no subjective standpoint in it, just a record of things. However, when it came to the second edition, Ren Xiaosu discovered that the manuscript was actually written by the editor-in-chief Jiang Su himself. The whole article criticized the Wang family's defeat in the north, which led to the massacre, and the looting from the fire. The news said that the grassland people had already passed the news of the enemy coming from the north to the 176th fortress. There was a gap of more than 10 days in between. The Wang family should have completed the deployment of troops. Although the Wang family had troops going north, the main force was always stationed at the Kong family border. If the main force of the Wang family rushed to the aid of the 176th fortress, it might still be too late to stop the massacre, but it would definitely save many people. During the massacre, some refugees escaped from the fortress by chance and went all the way south to seek protection from the Wang family. However, they walked hundreds of miles without seeing the Wang family's reinforcements, and were eventually caught up and killed by the northern tribes. Now, Wang not only failed to defend barrier number 176, but also failed to send reinforcements to counterattack barrier number 176. Instead, he launched an attack on Kong. In the face of foreign enemies, they were still thinking about how to seize the greatest benefits. This made Jiang Su feel deeply angry and powerless. In contrast, Jiang Su admired Hou Zhuang's actions in the face of justice. It should be a very difficult decision to give up barrier number 31 and barrier number 32 that had already been obtained. Jiang Su said in the manuscript that the people of the Central Plains should remember Hou Zhuang's decision and should also remember the choice made by Wang. At the same time, Jiang Su also called on the entire barrier alliance to unite against foreign enemies. The massacre of the city has already revealed the ambitions of the foreign races. The people of the Central Plains should put aside all past grudges and unite. As soon as this news came out, the entire barrier alliance was in an uproar. The term massacre was really shocking. Wang's indifference and calculation also made everyone angry. The third edition hopes that media reporters will interview the senior management of Hou Zhuang and tell about the other party's confidence in fighting foreign enemies. The fourth page said that during the interview, the reporter found that Hou Zhuang was facing difficulties that might arise from foreign enemies, such as insufficient medical conditions, insufficient medicines, insufficient clothing reserves, and other material problems. After all, they had just finished fighting with the Kong family, and they had not expected such a thing to happen suddenly in the north, so they were not fully prepared. In the barriers of other consortiums, there were voices of people condemning Wang's family. Many celebrities came out to praise Hou Zhuang, and students began to take to the streets to raise funds for Hou Zhuang. Some raised money for medicines, and some said they would go to the north as volunteers. King University alone organized a spontaneous group of more than 600 people to contact Tuazong, and they will carry a large amount of supplies to the north to provide support in the near future. Then, after everyone turned over the 4th page and read so many shocking news, they would see this sentence on the 5th page: "Don't let the sadness of the times become your sadness." This sentence suddenly became a faint light in this era. Ren Xiaosu put down the newspaper. Yang Xiaojun noticed that he was frowning and asked, "What's wrong?" Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, "Jiang Su's words this time are too radical. Will it anger the Wang family?" This news is equivalent to isolating the Wang family in the Barrier Alliance. The Wang family is now so brutal. Will Jiang Su be okay? As soon as these words came out, Yang Xiaojun knew what Ren Xiaosu was worried about. "I don't think so. My aunt still has a bottom line on this kind of thing. No matter how much Jiang Su criticizes, he is just a journalist. He has no political stance and no faction. Killing such a person will cause public outrage." "I hope so," Ren Xiaosu sighed. After that, he handed the newspaper to Wang Jing and others to read. After Wang Jing finished reading, he turned to the 5th page and saw that sentence and suddenly said, "I really want to meet someone who can say this." Ren Xiaosu raised his eyebrows, but didn't say anything. However, Yang Xiaojun was sure that Ren Xiaosu must be very happy now. When it was dinner time, before the troop transport truck stopped, Ren Xiaosu jumped out with more than a dozen aluminum lunchboxes distributed by Hosen, and ran all the way to the kitchen team. He held 6 lunchboxes in his left hand and several in his right hand. The height of the lunchboxes was higher than his head. The soldiers of the Hosen unit were shocked to see this scene. They had never seen a player who served food like this. The cooks and the kitchen squad were also shocked, as if they were looking at a low-profile version of the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King. The cooks were surprised and said, "I knew you were here to get food, but I didn't know you were here to take me away with your magic weapon." Ren Xiaosu opened the lunchboxes one by one. "Please help fill them up." The cooks were speechless, but they had been told that the boy could queue up with the soldiers when he came to get food, so they couldn't say anything. After getting his meal, Ren Xiaosu ran back with his lunchbox, and became a sight to behold in the fire seed car. Seeing that Ren Xiaosu could get food, the other refugees immediately rushed over, but as soon as they rushed over, they were pushed away by the fire soldiers. "Don't you know the rules? You can get food after the fire soldiers have finished their meals." The middle-aged man who had a conflict with Ren Xiaosu before was stunned. "That guy can get food just now, why can't we? Isn't this treating him differently?" The fire soldier sneered. He was specifically told by the superiors to be treated specially. "If you want to be treated the same as him, go to our superiors." "Why, you don't dare." The soldier was right. The other refugees were not as brave as Ren Xiaosu. They repeatedly ran to others to ask for things. To be honest, P5092 was also very curious, so he was willing to talk to Ren Xiaosu so much. So, the refugees watched Ren Xiaosu and his men eat and drink in the car, and they could only wait for the fire soldiers to finish their meals, and then go to eat some leftovers, and maybe there would be no leftovers. The middle-aged man finally made up his mind at this time. "Let's go. I'll give away this watch on my hand. I don't believe we can't have a hot meal. When the other party accepts my watch, we will chase these people off their car." After that, he went to find P5092, but before he could get close to the other party, he was chased away by the soldiers around the other party. The middle-aged man smiled flatteringly and said, "I came to give something to the commander." The soldier said coldly, "Go back." The commander said, "You are not worthy. I'm updating with illness. Can you ask for some monthly tickets? I admire myself for not leaving the front line even with a minor injury." Chapter 835. Don't treat yourself as an outsider. These days, even if the people of Trinity Society had food, it was all the leftovers of the fire soldiers, and the big pot of rice had been cold for nearly an hour. In this season, the body is already cold, and eating a mouthful of cold rice is very uncomfortable. Moreover, there is basically no meat in the leftovers, and at most there is some broth. Now, the white rice in the lunchbox is topped with braised chicken pieces, and the broth has turned the rice into a beautiful soy sauce color, which looks very appetizing. Liang Set and others ate the food vigorously, and kept muttering while eating, "Xiaosu, you are so good at getting along with the people of fire." Seeing that no one had taken a shower for so many days, and sleeping in the truck in the wind and rain, everyone's face was gray. and they looked not much different from refugees. Ren Xiaosu opened a lunchbox and handed it to Wang Jing. "Eat it while it's hot, old man." Wang Jing looked at Liang San and the others and said with a smile, "Why don't you say thank you to Ren Xiaosu?" When everyone heard this, Sima Gang immediately took the lead. "Thank you, Xiaosu. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to make it to the clinic." "Thank you" from Sima Gang, +1. Liang San laughed happily. "Xiaosu, we don't need to say thank you given our relationship. If there's anything in the future," Ren Xiaosu interrupted, "you should say thank you." Liang San, "Thank you." "Thank you" from Liang San, +1. Everyone in the truck suddenly laughed. No one knew why they laughed, and no one knew what touched everyone's nerves. Maybe it was a full meal, or maybe Ren Xiaosu insisted that Liang San say thank you. The fatigue of the past few days seemed to be swept away. However, this laughter was not so comfortable to the ears of other refugees, and it was even a little harsh. You know, Ren Xiaosu and his friends had enough tonight, but the other refugees didn't line up, so they could only wait to see if there would be another chance tomorrow morning. At this time, a weak voice came from outside the truck bed of Ren Xiaosu and his friends. "Excuse me. Not all refugees were as violent as that middle-aged man." The refugee who came this time was a tall and thin young man. He looked at Ren Xiaosu and said, "I have a gold ring. Can I buy a few meals from you?" Everyone in the car looked at each other. Although Wang Jing was the head of the medical team of the Trinity Society, he would never make any decisions for Ren Xiaosu at this time. Ren Xiaosu thought about it and refused. "I'm sorry, I can only get food with the permission of the people from Huazhen. I can't make the decision on this matter. Instead of looking for me, you might as well go directly to the people from Huazhen." The refugee outside was embarrassed, and it was obvious that he didn't dare to contact Huazhen. In Ren Xiaosu's eyes, he had dealt with Huazhen many times, so he didn't feel scared, but ordinary people didn't think so when facing enemies who broke into cities and homes. However, Ren Xiaosu ignored him. He just wanted to protect the people of Trinity Society. He didn't care about other people. What if the people of Fire Seed saw that you were secretly collecting money from others and even stopped giving food to Trinity Society? After the refugee left disappointed, Wang Jing suddenly asked, "You can actually help him, right? Old man, there are too many people in the world who need help, and he is not the only one." Ren Xiaosu replied calmly, "Do you think I did something wrong?" No. Wang Jing shook his head. "I just feel a little sad and distressed all of a sudden. You are such a good child, you must have experienced a lot of hardships to make such a choice. You did nothing wrong, and I have no right to criticize you, but I don't know when the world will get better." Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Wang Jing to say this suddenly, so he kept silent. Wang Jing was right. It was this world that taught him how to get along with the world. He had suffered so much in those years that he couldn't count how many hardships he had, so how could he still have the heart to help others? But at a certain moment, Ren Xiaosu suddenly remembered that someone had told him that he was also a beam of light. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked Wang Jing, "Grandpa, do you think I am a good person or a bad person?" Wang Jing asked, "If we were not there, what would you do when you encountered the spark force?" Ren Xiaosu thought for a moment and replied, "They can't stop me, I will leave." "So you stayed for us, right?" Wang Jing smiled. "Good people don't have to save everyone in the world, otherwise it would be too tiring. You have done what you can, so you should have a clear conscience." Wang Jing did not directly answer Ren Xiaosu's question, but it seemed that he had already answered it. The spark force continued to rumble northward. Ren Xiaosu sat in the car covered with a blanket and staggered to look outside the car, the starry sky, and the wilderness. At this time, Yang Xiaojun silently held his hand under the blanket. The soft palm was warm and powerful. Ren Xiaosu suddenly smiled. Why did he think so much? However, at this moment, Ren Xiaosu suddenly remembered what the artificial intelligence had said to him. It had witnessed how humans treated aliens at barrier number 61. At that time, Ren Xiaosu said that the creeper was removed because it had hurt humans. The artificial intelligence said that it had also hurt humans. Just as Wang Jing said just now, any decision made by humans is determined by past experiences. So artificial intelligence has been experiencing its own life like a newborn baby since its birth. Will what it sees determine its future choices? Just like when Ren Xiaosu saw Zhang Baojun being captured by the soldiers of barrier number 113, He immediately decided to hide and regarded barrier number 113 as an imaginary enemy. Otherwise, he would not have to hide. It would be so comfortable to be an extraordinary person. Now, isn't the hidden artificial intelligence just like himself who concealed his identity as an extraordinary person? Thinking about it, Ren Xiaosu fell asleep in a daze, and Yin Yang Xiaojin's tightly clasped hands never loosened. Horizontal ellipsis. The next morning, when the fire troops took a break and had lunch, Ren Xiaosu decisively rushed to the kitchen squat carrying 2 stacks of lunch boxes. The kitchen soldier's eyes twitched, fearing that Ren Xiaosu would shout at them, "Do you dare to answer me when I call your name?" After dinner, Ren Xiaosu couldn't wait to find P5092 to ask if today's newspaper had been delivered. P5092 was happy to see Ren Xiaosu. "You come to visit me so early in the morning? You really think this is your own home?" "Well." Ren Xiaosu looked at the newspaper in the officer's hand. "You have already read the first and second pages. Let me see the newspaper you have read first." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 836. Even myself can be sacrificed. P5092 was so angry that he laughed when he heard what Ren Xiaosu said. "You really don't consider yourself an outsider." But he really handed the first newspaper to Ren Xiaosu. As a result, a strange scene appeared in the temporary station of Huazhen. As one of the highest-ranking officers in the main force, P5092 sat in the back seat of the off-road vehicle and read the newspaper leisurely. And Ren Xiaosu, as a refugee who was escorted and conscripted, sat sideways in the driver's seat, also crossed his legs and read the newspaper. In the eyes of everyone, the status of these two people is extremely different, but they don't seem to care too much, and they get along very well. Moreover, after reading a newspaper, P5092 will take the initiative to hand it to Ren Xiaosu, and Ren Xiaosu also took it as a matter of course. The refugees who are still waiting in line for food are all stunned. Who is this kid and why is he so connected? Exclamation mark. Is he a refugee? Exclamation mark. Not to mention the refugees were confused, even the soldiers of the fire seat were a little confused. Ren Xiaosu looked at the newspaper. There was basically nothing new about what happened today. It was just about the main force of the fire seed rushing to the northern battlefield. The northern tribes and the Wang family came into contact on the Beiwan mountain line. Neither side gained any advantage. They were just in the testing stage. Then there were some scattered information, such as the supplies of King University had been prepared, and the first batch would set off this afternoon. Accompanying them were not only the Luochang garrison troops escorting the supplies, but also some students going to the front line as volunteers. The Luochang garrison troops had to negotiate with the fire seed to go north. After all, the entry of troops from other forces always made people a little worried. For example, the Wang family had already rejected Zhou's material assistance. Everyone felt that Wang's refusal was purely because they didn't want to give Zhou a reason to assemble troops. But surprisingly, the fire seed agreed to Luochang's application without hesitation, and directly chose to let them escort the supplies north in person, and also agreed that the Luochang garrison troops would participate in this war against foreign invaders. You know, participating in a war together is a very sensitive matter. This is equivalent to Huazhong showing the deployment map of their northern defense line to King. In the past, King and Huazhong had a good relationship, but everyone was a little confused. The relationship between the two families was not so good. When Luochang was in danger before, Huazhong did not support it. After reading the newspaper, Ren Xiaosu asked, "What do you think of this war? Can we win?" "It's not a question of whether we can win, but we must win," said P5092. "Will many people die?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "You allowed the Luochang garrison to join the war, probably because you think your strength may not be enough." "It's hard to say." P5092 shook his head. "They are only the vanguard troops now, and it's hard to judge how many people will follow." "Why am I telling you this?" P5092 stopped discussing military intelligence with Ren Xiaosu. As a P5, was he worthy of discussing this with Ren Xiaosu? He said unhappily, "Have you finished reading the newspaper? Go back to your car after reading it. I have another question. Ren Xiaosu ignored what P5 said and started asking questions again. I see you brought hundreds of refugees from barrier number 31. Who are they and why are you arresting them? Half of them are maintenance workers, P5092 said. When the war starts, the maintenance work of the mechanized troops must be done solidly. A broken car is not worth a penny. The rest are either former senior executives of the Kong family, who are brought back for interrogation, or some researchers. Ren Xiaosu thought that it was no wonder that he had seen several trucks carrying information before. It turned out that Huazhong had taken away some of Kong's research results. But the maintenance workers have to go to the front line, right? Ren Xiaosu asked. Yes, P5 nodded. But they may not be willing to do so. Going to the front line will kill people. Ren Xiaosu curled his lips. They have to be willing even if they don't want to. P5 said this with an extremely firm attitude. For this war, we can even sacrifice ourselves at any time, why can't they? Ren Xiaosu nodded. This is what Huazhong should be like. They don't treat others as human beings at all. However, Ren Xiaosu found that these Huazhong people are also very cruel, because they are not only cruel to others, but also to themselves. When the number 74 barrier encountered the experimental subject, the combatants of the Huazhong really dared to hold TNT and die together with the experimental subject. I think in the eyes of Huazhong, this northern tribe is just like the experimental subject, all aliens. And they themselves are responsible for guarding the people of the Central Plains, although the people of the Central Plains do not agree with this statement. P5092 glanced at Ren Xiaosu. Do you think that what I am doing is a little unfair to them? Ren Xiaosu did not speak. P5092 continued, there is no such thing as fairness or unfairness in this world. Have you ever considered that if our fire is defeated in the north, they will die just the same? When the beasts in the north go south, who will protect them? Rely on the vulnerable paper tiger Kong family? Or rely on the Wang family? Ren Xiaosu thought that there was nothing wrong with what P5 said. If the fire was really wiped out in the north, then these people in the south would die even if they were not conscripted. It was just a matter of dying early or late. P5 continued, we are doing this for the survival of the human race in the Central Plains. Perhaps you will think that with so many people in the Central Plains, there is no need to worry about extinction. But I think they are too fragile and can't withstand any storms now. Do you know how many people lived in a medium-sized city before the disaster? 10 million people. Now, a barrier has only a few 100,000 people. How powerful was human civilization before the disaster, but how many people are left now? These words stunned Ren Xiaosu. He used to think that the city before the disaster and the current barrier were not much different, but when he compared 10 million with hundreds of thousands, he realized what the disaster meant to mankind. P5092 said with emotion, you never know which will come first, disaster or tomorrow. I know other people don't understand, but we don't need them to understand. When disaster strikes again, the new humans with strong physical fitness will surely survive to the end. Not everyone is as lucky as the extraordinary people, but Spark can bring this luck to everyone. It's just that the technology is not perfect yet. Okay, you don't have to tell me so much, Ren Xiaosu said, laughing and crying. I didn't say you did anything wrong. In fact, I agree with Spark this time. Everyone is responsible for resisting foreign enemies, and Spark should not be left to fight alone. I am also contributing my own strength. Don't worry, when the time comes, your comrade will be handed over to me for treatment. As long as he has external injuries and as long as he is still alive, I will not let him die. Ren Xiaosu walked towards their truck and waved his hand when he left. See you tomorrow. P5 was stunned for a long time. Why did the two of them suddenly act like friends and see each other tomorrow? On the way back, the refugees saw that Ren Xiaosu had become the most special refugee in the fire army. Many fire soldiers would greet Ren Xiaosu when they saw him, and some even offered him cigarettes. The middle-aged man who had a conflict with Ren Xiaosu suddenly panicked. Would this kid bear a grudge? If the other party made things difficult for him in this army, I'm afraid no one would speak up for him. Chapter 837, The Frontline. War. Ren Xiaosu's current status in the Spark Force is indeed special. After all, he can read newspapers with P5. Who knows what the relationship between the two is now? Therefore, the Spark soldiers who saw the harmonious scene in the morning were all polite to Ren Xiaosu. Those who didn't see it also heard that there was a refugee who had a good relationship with their leader, so they must not offend him. To be honest, the Spark soldiers were also very confused about the relationship between their leader P5092 and this young man. When Ren Xiaosu returned to the truck of the Trinity Institute, the 3 soldiers who took his watch actually came to him and said they wanted to return it to him. However, Ren Xiaosu refused to take it back and comforted the 3 soldiers, "Just keep it and don't worry. This is to thank you for your help on the road. You can't say that I am your superior's good brother and don't thank you. This is wrong." The 3 soldiers were persuaded by Ren Xiaosu to go back, but the news that Ren Xiaosu and P5 had become good brothers spread like wildfire. The next morning when they were getting food, the cooks were very enthusiastic and even asked Ren Xiaosu what he wanted to eat for lunch. The other refugees on the side could not accept this reality. Seeing that they couldn't even eat, this boy could actually order food in the fire troop. The gap between people can't be this big. On that day, the Spark troops' marching plan suddenly accelerated. Ren Xiaosu could clearly feel the speed of the car increasing. He held on to the guardrail in front of the truck bed and asked the soldier driving the car, "Why did you suddenly speed up?" The 3 soldiers said, "We have received orders from above to reach the front line within 2 days. Not only was the number 176 barrier attacked, but a northern tribe also appeared in the north of our Spark. They massacred people from 2 factories. We must drive them away and establish a defense line in the north of the Spark before their main army arrives in the Central Plains." Ren Xiaosu thought, "It seems that this northern tribe has launched a full-scale attack on the Central Plains. They are going to fight the Wang family and the Spark together? Exclamation mark. Is this too confident, or do they not understand the situation in the Central Plains at all?" He sat back in the truck bed and watched the long convoy crossing the mountains and rivers. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt that he was fighting side by side with the Spark to overcome the difficulties. This feeling was very wonderful. The 2 originally opposing parties were suddenly connected for the same foreign enemy. Ren Xiaosu couldn't explain why. Spring has arrived, and the mountains are beginning to turn green. The streams in the mountain streams have broken through the ice. The melted snow water flows down from the mountains and gathers into a turbulent river in the mountain streams. When the river hits the rocks, it will also hit white waves. If the fire is successful, then everything here will be preserved. If the fire fails, the streams in the mountains will also be dyed red by blood. On the 3rd day, the fire troops finally rushed to the last forward base behind the front line, but what Ren Xiaosu and his team did not expect was that the entire forward base was in a state of chaos. The veterans who had retired from the front line leaned against the wall and slept with their guns. They were covered with traces of mud and looked miserable. Ren Xiaosu and his team also saw many wounded people who were carried from the north to the health center in the base. Outside the health center, someone used hundreds of wooden stakes and iron wires to build a place for drying clothes, on which were hung sheets, clothes, and gauze. The washed and dried clothes still had blood stains that could not be washed off, which was shocking. Ren Xiaosu suddenly realized that during the few days they rushed to the front line, the war in the north was far more cruel than he had imagined. Someone was carrying a wounded soldier outside the 3-story building of the temporary clinic and crying, "Who'll save my squad leader?" Ren Xiaosu looked at this scene from afar. This was the first time he saw the people of the Spark crying. It turned out that these people also had normal emotions and would feel sad for their comrades. Ren Xiaosu had never seen such a scene before. In his impression, those people would not show any emotions when their teammates died. This was true for both the early morning team and the dusk team. Yang Xiaojin seemed to notice his doubts. The intelligence system is different from the combat sequence. People in the intelligence system do not get along day and night. Some people only become partners temporarily when they perform tasks. Moreover, people who do intelligence have always had to abandon useless emotions. At this time, the crying Spark soldier was next to his comrade in arms. There was a stretcher on the ground, and on the stretcher lay a Spark soldier whose life and death were unknown. Someone from the clinic came out to receive the patient, but he said with embarrassment, "There are not enough doctors in the clinic now. They are all treating the patients who were sent here before. Please carry him in and wait for a while." Several Spark warriors who sent the wounded were unwilling to do so. They held the nurses and said, "Please save him. He was hit in the abdomen by an axe. If you don't save him, it will be too late." The physical fitness of the Spark warriors is stronger than that of ordinary people. so they can hold out for nearly half an hour after being hit in the abdomen by an axe. However, no matter how strong their physical fitness is, they will die. Quick, save people. Wang Jing asked everyone to get off the bus. These doctors from the Trinity Society had many complaints, disappointments and frustrations on the road, but when they saw a life about to disappear in front of them, the first thing they thought of was to save people, and the rest would be discussed later. Ren Xiaosu helped Wang Jing get out of the car. Wang Jing said to the nurse, "I am Wang Jing from the Wang's Trinity Society. Prepare for surgery." The nurse was surprised when she heard Wang Jing's name. "Are you Mr. Wang Jing?" Only then did Ren Xiaosu realize that the name Wang Jing was so useful in the medical industry. The other party gave the old man absolute trust just by hearing the name. However, the nurse said in embarrassment, "All the operating rooms are occupied. It's not that we don't want you to use it, but there are too many injured. All the doctors who can operate in this clinic are saving people. Some people haven't slept for a day and a night." Wang Jing was a little embarrassed. What should he do if there is no operating room? Without even a sterile environment, how can he operate on patients? Ren Xiaosu suddenly said to Wang Jing, "Nurse, just bring the suture needle and thread over here. Old man, you suture him. I have some ancestral ointment here. It should be able to save him." As she said that, the nurse turned back to the clinic and brought out a container with hemostatic forceps, sutures and other medical instruments on it. Wang Jing glanced at Ren Xiaosu and said, "You should know how serious the consequences will be if bacteria and viruses are left in his body without careful disinfection. Are you sure?" Ren Xiaosu grinned and said, "Don't worry, old man." After saying that, Wang Jing actually started to suture the patient's wound directly. The intestines of the fire warrior's abdomen were cut off, and the whole person was in a state of shock due to blood loss. According to the nurse, this person should not be saved, but Wang Jing seemed to trust the boy next to him very much. Every time Wang Jing sutured a wound, Ren Xiaosu applied a little black medicine. He didn't care whether the black medicine would have an effect if applied to the abdomen. Now he had to let the other person survive first. The firefighters on the side were originally in despair, but they suddenly found that when the black medicine was applied to the first wound, their squad leader's pale cheeks regained a trace of blood color. They looked at each other in bewilderment. What kind of medicine is this? It's so magical. Not far away, P5092 has been watching this scene with interest. The adjutant next to him wanted to say something, but was stopped by him. "Let's see. Please vote for me. Thank you Victor and DNZC for becoming the new allies of this book. The boss is generous." Chapter 838. See you again. Before the squad leader was carried over, even the soldiers who carried him over had given up hope. Although they were not doctors, they understood that if a person was hit by an axe in the abdomen and his intestines were cut off, and it took half an hour, even if a god came, he might not be able to save him. So the soldiers crying in front of the hospital were just losing their minds. But what they didn't expect was that after Wang Jing sutured the wound and the young man applied the black ointment, the squad leader's face turned ruddy quickly. The most terrifying thing was that the indescribable place under the squad leader's pants suddenly. A soldier wiped his tears and murmured, "Brothers, the dead shouldn't have this reaction, right?" Of course not. Didn't the squad leader lose too much blood? How could he still be congested? Ren Xiaosu muttered to himself while applying the black medicine. It turned out that applying the black medicine on the internal organs would really directly trigger another function of the black medicine. He had never tried it before, but now he has learned something new. The young nurse at the side was watching this scene and suddenly felt inexplicably shocked. A dying patient not only had his heartbeat and complexion becoming normal, but also congested. At this time, the squad leader lying on the stretcher coughed, then opened his eyes and looked around blankly. "Where am I?" The soldiers were overjoyed. "Squad leader! Squad leader, you're awake." After that, they turned to look at Wang Jing and Ren Xiaosu. "Are you two doctors in our clinic?" In the eyes of the soldiers, the image of Wang Jing and Ren Xiaosu began to rise infinitely. Seeing the old squad leader come back to life, these two doctors simply have the ability to turn decay into magic. Wang Jing smiled and said, "Your squad leader should be fine now." Ren Xiaosu wiped the blood off his hands and stood up. "Although my ancestral ointment is magical, try not to let him move within 3 days, and don't think you are healed and run back to the battlefield. I suggest recuperating for a month." The soldiers thanked him incoherently. Thank you so much, you two are simply gods descending to earth." At this time, Ren Xiaosu found that the 4 soldiers thanked him and actually added 12 thank you coins to him in one breath. He suddenly turned his head with shining eyes and looked at the clinic. Before, Ren Xiaosu was still thinking that if the injured were unconscious, wouldn't his black medicine be a loss? But now the situation is completely different. If the injured were carried by his comrades, then even if the patient was unconscious and didn't say thank you, the comrades would say yes, and it would take at least 2 people to carry the stretcher, which means that 1 dose of medicine can be exchanged for double the thank you. This is simply the best place for him to brush thank you coins, double happiness. P5092, who had been watching for a long time, smiled and said to Ren Xiaosu, "It was only until this moment that I felt that you looked like a doctor." Now Ren Xiaosu's hands were covered with blood that dried up quickly, and there were a lot of blood stains on his body, which he couldn't even wipe off. This scene made Ren Xiaosu look much more embarrassed. In P5092's opinion, Ren Xiaosu before this didn't look like a doctor at all, and he didn't look like a doctor at all. Now, he saw with his own eyes how Ren Xiaosu saved the dying and healed the wounded, and finally believed what Ren Xiaosu said, "Your comrade in arms was carried to me. As long as he had external injuries and was still breathing, he would not die." Thinking of this, P5092 told his adjutant to leave, and then said to Ren Xiaosu, "You are a superhuman, right?" As soon as these words came out, Ren Xiaosu was startled. "What are you talking about, sir? Why don't I understand?" "Don't worry," P5 said with a smile, "being a superhuman is not a big deal. No need to explain. I have my own judgment. However, your awakened ability is indeed very suitable for being a doctor. Everyone says that superhuman abilities are the continuation of spiritual will. You can awaken the ability to cure diseases and save lives, which shows that you are a kind-hearted person." At this time, P5092 had already made his own judgment. He believed that the black medicine was the embodiment of Ren Xiaosu's ability. "What ability do I have?" Ren Xiaosu continued to pretend to be confused. P5092 shook his head. "Don't pretend anymore. You should understand that with the way we, the fire seed, act, we can capture you even if we just suspect you. After all, this is the fire seed's territory. Don't worry, I will keep it a secret for you." Ren Xiaosu was silent for a few seconds, then smiled and asked, "Why don't you capture me? Aren't you fire seed very interested in the genes of extraordinary people?" "That's in the past." P5092 shook his head and said, "Have you heard about the fire seed capturing extraordinary people recently?" Now it was Ren Xiaosu's turn to be confused. "Why didn't they capture them?" "I haven't heard of such things recently. Because ordinary people's genes are always imperfect," P5092 explained. "They are only interested in experimental subject number 001 now." Ren Xiaosu was shocked. Experimental subject number 001, the one mentioned in the media newspapers. Of course he knew what experimental subject number 001 was, and he also knew that there were 3 drops of God's blood in the Holy Mountain. But Ren Xiaosu couldn't say that he had been to the Holy Mountain, so he could only pretend that he didn't know. But Ren Xiaosu didn't understand. Since the fire could preserve 3 drops of blood, and they wanted to extract the genes of subject 001, why didn't they start with the 3 drops of blood? Couldn't they extract genes from the 3 drops of blood? That's why they were looking for subject 001, hoping to find other breakthroughs from him. At this time, the adjutant brought more than 10 suitcases to the clinic. Ren Xiaosu recognized them as the luggage of the Trinity Society. "What is this?" Ren Xiaosu asked. P5092 smiled and said, "I'll return the luggage to you. Otherwise, how can you explain the source of your medicine?" P5092 felt that he had seen through everything. The black medicine was the embodiment of Ren Xiaosu's ability. Now giving the suitcase to Ren Xiaosu is to make it easier for him to explain the source of the medicine. It must be said that this P5 was quite thoughtful. Ren Xiaosu glanced at P5092. No matter what, the other party expressed his goodwill. "Thank you." P5092 explained, "Don't thank me. I am just making the most rational choice in the face of a powerful enemy. I feel more at ease with a doctor like you in the rear clinic. I'll leave my comrades in arms to you. We'll see each other again if we are lucky. But it is highly likely that we won't see each other again." Ren Xiaosu asked curiously, "Why can't we see each other?" "No one can tell. If you were injured, wouldn't you be carried to me?" P5092, "Why are you cursing? Ahem, a slip of the tongue? Ren Xiaosu also realized that there was something wrong with this statement. At this time, several more injured people were carried in from the clinic. Liang Se called Ren Xiaosu to come over to treat them. Ren Xiaosu glanced at P5. You have changed my impression of Huazhen a lot. I hope you can survive on the front line. I believe we will have the opportunity to meet again in the future. As he said that, Ren Xiaosu ran towards the clinic. Chapter 839 The Pillar of the Health Center. P5092 watched Ren Xiaosu leave, and asked his adjutant, "Has the army assembled?" "It has assembled," the adjutant said, but Commander P5091 did not stop here, and went directly to the battlefield. He said that the front line was attacked and needed to rush to reinforce. "Since 091 has gone, we can take a break," P5 said. "Let everyone take a hot bath, have a full meal, and set off tonight." "Got it," the adjutant asked in confusion. "You seem to be more interested in this boy? You said before that he might be a superhuman. Is it confirmed now?" "He is just a superhuman who saves the dying and the wounded," P5092 said with a smile. "This matter is not allowed to be spread outside. It is a blessing for you and me to have such a person staying in the rear. By the way, go find the 3 soldiers who drive them, and call them over so I can ask them a few questions." "Okay," the adjutant said and left. After more than 20 minutes, he led 3 soldiers back. The 3 soldiers were trembling with fear, wondering if the commander knew about their bribery and was going to take action against them. As a result, when P5092 saw the watches on the 3 of them, he was suddenly stunned and whispered, "How many watches does this guy have? Okay, you 3 can go back." Seeing that the watches on the 3 soldiers were exactly the same as the one on his wrist. Originally, P5092 thought that Ren Xiaosu gave away his watch, but he didn't expect that the other party bought it wholesale. After that, P5092 walked into the forward base, and laughed while walking, leaving the adjutant and the 3 soldiers at a loss. Life in the clinic was busy, so busy that Ren Xiaosu had never come out since he went in. Ren Xiaosu had no time to see what the forward base looked like. He didn't even know where the cafeteria was. All the nurses helped to get food. After the operation, all the doctors squatted in the corridor to eat a few mouthfuls, and then hurried into the operating room. It was not until this moment that Ren Xiaosu understood why Huazhen wanted to requisition the Trinity Society. In fact, he later heard that the refugees who went north with them were only the first batch, and all the doctors of the Kong family would be requisitioned in the future. Because the medical gap was too big. Occasionally, the doctors who squatted in the corridor to eat together would chat with each other, but they were all talking about the condition. One doctor said while eating, "The wounded just now had to be amputated. It was too late to send him here. What a pity." Another doctor threw the lunchbox into the trash can after finishing his meal. "The medicines in my department are running out." "What's the situation over there?" "I'm a little stretched here," the doctor said with emotion, "but have you heard that the people from the Trinity Society seem to have come? They have newly established a 4th emergency department over there, which seems to be very powerful. This is the first time I have walked out of the operating room since this morning. I don't know. I'm leaving. There are more than a dozen wounded waiting to be rescued over there," the doctor said and left in a hurry. The 5 minutes of eating are their rare rest time in the day. Just like what Wang Jing lamented, when war comes, the speed of saving lives can never catch up with the speed of wounding and killing people in war. At this time, Ren Xiaosu stood in front of an independent temporary operating table, and Wang Jing stood opposite him, skillfully suturing the wounds of the wounded. They couldn't even achieve the most basic aseptic conditions here. It was just a temporary transformation of an office, and then the nurses pushed an operating table recliner and started the operation. At first, the person in charge of the health center said that this was not okay. Without aseptic conditions, even if the operation was performed, the patient could not be saved, and there would be big problems. At this time, Wang Jing's face was still useful. The old man went to explain to the person in charge, and the other party stopped caring. Wang Jing and Ren Xiaosu suddenly became partners. Meng Nan and Liang Se served as assistants, and Yang Xiaojin stood aside and kept handing surgical tools to Wang Jing, playing the role of a nurse. What surprised Wang Jing was that Yang Xiaojin got started very quickly and worked very seriously. Generally, there will be problems in the coordination between the surgeon and the nurse. During the operation, the nurse should hand over the tools according to the doctor's habits. For example, At what angle does the doctor usually take the scalpel and needle holder? When the nurse hands it over, at what angle can the doctor get the tools as quickly as possible? All of these require a period of adjustment. It's not that the surgeon is hypocritical, but everyone is racing against time during the operation. Allowing the surgeon to perform the operation without any obstacles is one of the basic conditions for ensuring the life of the injured. Originally, Wang Jing was worried that he would need to change his previous habits during the operation, but Yang Xiaojun only took 10 minutes to remember all of Wang Jing's habits of holding the tools. Not only Yang Xiaojun, but also Ren Xiaosu did not only apply medicine during the operation, but also assisted in suturing. Wang Jing occasionally found that when Ren Xiaosu sutured the wound, even the stitches were exactly the same as his own. And what he was thinking, sometimes Ren Xiaosu could guess it without saying anything. After all, Ren Xiaosu copied the advanced skills directly from Wang Jing. This feeling made Wang Jing feel so comfortable. He had never performed such a tacit operation before. Ren Xiaosu said with a mask on, right-angle pliers. After that, Yang Xiaojun accurately found the model of right-angle pliers that Ren Xiaosu needed and handed it to Ren Xiaosu, with great efficiency. Wang Jing discovered that when Yang Xiaojun handed the right-angle pliers to Ren Xiaosu, it was also the most convenient angle for Ren Xiaosu to take the pliers. After an operation, Ren Xiaosu applied black medicine to the injured. Wang Jing opened the injured's eyelids to check the pupils. After confirming that the other party was fine, he shouted to the nurse outside the door, "Push it away, next one." Taking advantage of this gap, Ren Xiaosu walked out of the operating room. Wang Jing was a little confused about where Ren Xiaosu was going, but he saw Ren Xiaosu taking off his disposable gloves and shaking hands with the injured comrades cordially, and accepting their thanks. After the injured comrades finished thanking him, Ren Xiaosu returned to the operating room to continue saving people. At this time, more and more injured people were carried into the clinic, but nearly half of the injured were carried to Wang Jing and Ren Xiaosu. Because many processes were saved, the progress here was much faster than other departments. Liang Se secretly calculated the number of patients they treated. The number of patients they treated was almost the total number of patients treated by the other 7 departments. Gradually, many doctors and nurses who were taking a break no longer squatted in the corridor to chat, but ran to the outside of Wang Jing's operating room to watch. Ren Xiaosu's operating room didn't even close the door, because they didn't need a sterile environment at all. Opening the door made it easier for medical staff to carry the injured in and out. One patient regained consciousness after the operation, but when he opened his eyes, he saw a crowd of people outside the operating room. Chapter 840 The most hardcore doctor in history, Ren Xiaosu. To be honest, it wasn't that the doctors and nurses in the clinic liked to watch the fun, but after the Trinity Society arrived, their pressure suddenly dropped sharply. Then everyone heard that the Trinity Society was treating patients at an extremely amazing speed, and it was in an extremely simple operating room without even a sterile environment. The doctors felt a little unbelievable when they heard this. Can surgery be performed without sterile conditions? Isn't this going to be a big deal? As a result, they went to check the injured in the ward first. Many doctors found that the recovery of these injured was very good. Some of the injured were able to lie on the bed and chat just a few hours after the operation. Because there were too many injured, many people could only lie on the mobile beds in the corridor. As a result, after the corridor was filled, the whole hospital was filled with the chatter of the injured. A doctor stood in the corridor and lifted the gauze of a wounded patient. He was surprised to find that the wound had begun to scab. He asked the nurse next to him in surprise, "When was this operation completed?" 4 hours ago, the abdomen was injured and the intestines were cut off. Everyone had given up, but the wounded are now fine, the nurse said helplessly. Just after he finished speaking, the patient being examined suddenly said, "Do you have poker in your clinic? We can play cards when we are free." The doctor was shocked at the time. This guy had his intestines broken 4 hours ago, but now he's alive and kicking and wants to play cards? Exclamation mark. Is this Trinity Institute so magical that there are no adverse reactions after the operation, and the recovery speed is so fast? Question mark. It seems that the problem lies with a black ointment. At this time, someone carried a wounded person in from outside the clinic and shouted loudly, "Doctor, save my comrade." The doctor in the corridor was just about to see the patient, but another voice came. Ren Xiaosu poked his head out of the operating room and said, "We have finished here, carry him to our side." The doctor in the corridor was silent. After a long time, he suddenly asked, "Nurse, how many patients did they treat in the operating room?" "I don't have a specific number now," the nurse replied. "I can only say that half of the patients in our clinic were sent to them." "It's amazing," the doctor said with emotion. At this moment, many medical staff gathered outside the operating room of Ren Xiaosu and his colleagues, and even the director of the health center came to watch. "It's amazing, and the efficiency is so high. What exactly is the black medicine he applied?" Ren Xiaosu smiled and explained while applying the medicine to the wounded. "It's my family's secret recipe. It's very useful." The young nurses on the side looked at Ren Xiaosu's profile and whispered, "He is so young, he can go on the operating table at such a young age. Did you notice that in fact, Mr. Wang Jing is cooperating with him to perform the operation?" Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Wang Jing was only suturing on the operating table, while Meng Nan and Liang San next to him were only responsible for stopping bleeding, using instruments to suck out the debris from the wound, and so on. Everyone's behavior was ultimately to cooperate with Ren Xiaosu to apply the medicine. In the hospital, it is not easy for young doctors to go on the operating table. Young people who can perform surgery on the operating table are definitely the stars in the hospital. When it was time for dinner, the nurses who came to deliver meals to Ren Xiaosu and his friends could hardly squeeze in. The young nurse wanted to personally deliver the lunchbox to Ren Xiaosu, but was intercepted by Yang Xiaojin, who looked at her coldly. The young nurse muttered, "What are you doing?" As a result, Yang Xiaojin took off her mask and continued to look at her silently. "I'm his girlfriend." The young nurse looked at Yang Xiaojin's delicate face and suddenly retreated. In the past, Yang Xiaojin wore a baseball cap to hide her identity on the one hand, and on the other hand, she didn't like others to comment on her appearance. But now, she suddenly found that her face could dissuade many potential enemies, which was quite useful. Ren Xiaosu looked at Yang Xiaojin in surprise and almost laughed out loud. "It looks a bit like you're protecting your food." Yang Xiaojin rolled her eyes at him. "Hurry up and sew up the patient's wound." Wang Jing laughed happily on the side. "You two are really a good match." After entering the clinic, Ren Xiaosu and his team worked non-stop for more than 20 hours. Wang Jing couldn't stand it early and replaced Sima Gang and others to take over his position. After all, the old man was old and could not bear such a high-intensity operation. He thought carefully and realized that there was still a long time to go and he could not tire himself out at the beginning. So he made a plan. Each other surgeon worked for 8 hours and cooperated with Ren Xiaosu in 3 shifts to save people. When Ren Xiaosu was tired, he would take over personally. As a result, Ren Xiaosu stood on the operating table for 24 hours. Other doctors and assistants were replaced like water, but Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin were the only ones who did not move. Sima Gang, Liang San and others fell asleep directly in the corridor when they were tired. They were so tired that no one could wake them up. If they were not still breathing and still had a heartbeat, everyone would almost think they had died suddenly. But until this time, Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin were still on the operating table. This scene also shocked most doctors who claimed to have good physical strength. Finally, Wang Jing came to dissuade him. "Don't go on. The body is our capital for saving the dying and healing the wounded. I know you are eager to save people, but you can't cure all the patients in the world at once, right?" Only then did Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin step down from the operating table. When Ren Xiaosu walked out of the clinic, he looked at the sunlight above his head and found it a bit dazzling. But when the bright spring sunshine sprinkled on his body, he felt a warm power spread all over his body. The dry smell of his clothes mixed with the sunshine, and his whole body was warm, as if welcoming a new life. At this time, the palace suddenly spoke in his mind. Because the host saved 188 dying people, the achievement of saving the dying and healing the wounded was unlocked, and 2 points of free allocation attributes were awarded. Ren Xiaosu was happy. He increased his strength to 15.5 and his agility to 15.1. In this day and night, he not only gained nearly 1,000 gratitude coins, but also unlocked a new achievement. Unconsciously, Ren Xiaosu's physical fitness was almost close to Lao Su's earliest strength and speed. But just when he was about to take a rest, another batch of wounded were transported in from outside the forward base. Ren Xiaosu did not turn around and go back to the clinic, but looked thoughtful. Yang Xiaojin asked curiously, "What are you thinking about?" Ren Xiaosu sighed. "There are too many wounded. It seems that they can't be treated at all. There are 3 clinics nearby, But even so, they can't keep up with the speed of everyone's injuries. There is no way. Wars like this, Yang Xiaojun also sighed. No, if this goes on, the doctors in the clinic will be exhausted. Ren Xiaosu shook his head and said, let's go to the front line secretly. Yang Xiaojun was surprised for a moment. Why go to the front line? You are a doctor now. Kill the enemy, so that the casualties of friendly forces will be reduced. It can be regarded as saving the dying and healing the wounded, right? Isn't this what a doctor should do? Ren Xiaosu's expression was firm, and he said the most cruel words with the kindest attitude. Yang Xiaojun thought carefully. It seemed to be the case. Now the wounded are endless. That is because the enemy on the front line is too cruel, but if the enemy is killed, there will be no wounded. At this moment, the most hardcore doctor in history was born. He is an ordinary heart surgeon, Ren Xiaosu. Please give me a monthly ticket. Please give me a monthly ticket. Chapter 841 Salute. Ren Xiaosu's principle is that when a problem arises, if you can't solve the problem, then get rid of the person who created the problem. There is a very boring assumption in the world, that is, there is a fork in the road ahead of a railway track, there is a child on one fork, and there are 5 children on the other fork. The question is, if you have a switch in your hand, which side will you let the oncoming train hit? Let Ren Xiaosu answer. He will beat the person who asked this question to death first. However, Ren Xiaosu was not in a hurry to join the battlefield. After all, he and Yang Xiaojun had worked on the operating table for more than 20 hours, and they would definitely face a tough battle after entering the battlefield, so what Ren Xiaosu and his team needed most now was to rest. After they arrived, the forward base prepared dormitories for them. Originally, it was a collective dormitory, but their treatment of the wounded alarmed the entire forward base, causing some sensation, so their dormitory became a single room. To be honest, Ren Xiaosu really wanted to tell the P4 in charge of the forward base that with such tight resources, they could actually live in one room. But in the end, he didn't say it, because he couldn't find the major. A total of 190 patients were treated in 1 day and 1 night of surgery. This number may not sound like a lot, but other doctors would be considered very good if they could treat 10 seriously injured patients a day. After all, surgery is very complicated, and other people need to sterilize various instruments and sterilize the sterile environment. Wang Jing told him that the number of wounded people was not that large at the moment. After the full-scale war began, countless temporary tents would have to be built outside the clinic. By then, no one would care about sterility at all. Whether a person can survive depends on whether he is strong or not. It's not that the doctor's medical skills are not good, but the conditions do not allow it. However, this 1 day and 1 night surgery brought Ren Xiaosu not only the thank you coins and an achievement unlocked, but also the respect of the Spark soldiers and officers in the entire forward base. Everyone has heard that the new Trinity Society in the clinic is very powerful. As long as the wounded are in their hands, they will never die. Not only will they not die, but they can still be alive and kicking for a few hours. The only thing that puzzled people was why most of the patients had indescribable conditions in their lower bodies after the operation. Normally, nurses did not distinguish between male and female patients, but even the experienced nurses were a little embarrassed. When Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun woke up at night and entered the cafeteria of the forward base, a soldier suddenly stood up and saluted the two. Someone asked, "What's going on? Who are they?" Everyone knew about Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun through hearsay, but had never seen them. At this time, the soldier explained to the other people eating, "I carried the old squad leader back today. He saved him. He is the young doctor from the Trinity Society." As soon as these words came out, thousands of soldiers who were eating in the cafeteria slowly stood up and saluted in the direction of Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun. This scene was so shocking that Ren Xiaosu was unable to react at once. The Spark soldiers stood straight, their arms saluting as hard as steel. Some of them were just retired from the front line, and some were slightly injured and still wrapped in gauze. But all this did not prevent them from expressing their sincere respect. For a soldier, whether a doctor has medical ethics and medical skills is too important. Their commanders can't care about their life and death for tactical and strategic reasons, but the doctors do. In the past, Ren Xiaosu always felt that it was too difficult to gain respect from others in this era, so it was better to make others afraid of him, so he used his fists to solve problems most of the time. And now, he has also gained respect from others. To be honest, He never thought that he would get so much respect from so many people in the Spark Army. This is Spark, the Spark company that everyone regards as a cold-blooded animal. Suddenly, the palace spoke in his mind. The host has gained the sincere respect and trust of 999 people in one day, unlocked the achievement of popular support, and rewarded 2 free attribute points. Ren Xiaosu's attributes suddenly became Strength 16.5 and Agility 16.1. At this time, Ren Xiaosu said to the palace in his heart, "So those tasks of helping others are because you want me to be a good person sincerely. It seems that I have used it wrongly before. But it's wrong, I don't plan to change." Yang Xiaojin poked Ren Xiaosu with his elbow. "Don't you want to say something?" Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and said, "In the future, when you are cared to me, I will do my best to treat you." The soldiers in the audience were in an uproar. "Is this a group curse?" Ren Xiaosu patted his head. It was really not good for the doctor to say such a thing. It was like a funeral home organizing volunteers to visit the nursing home. It sounded a bit unethical. But soon, a huge laugh broke out in the cafeteria. Someone shouted, "Doctor, it's wartime and you can't drink. After this battle is won, you have to raise a glass for this sentence." After that, the cafeteria suddenly became cheerful, and the heavy atmosphere just now was completely gone. Ren Xiaosu went to get food, but the chef shook his wrist and shook off all the leaves in the spoon, leaving only meat. Ren Xiaosu raised his eyebrows. "It would take you decades to develop such skills." "Haha, eat more meat to replenish your strength," the chef said with a smile. "I admire a capable doctor like you." While they were eating, the P4 from the forward base also came to visit Ren Xiaosu and shook hands with him excitedly. At this time, Ren Xiaosu said, "By the way, I was just about to look for you. There is something that we need to go out for." P4 was stunned for a moment. "Where are you going?" "Into the mountains, to pick some herbs," Ren Xiaosu said. "You also know that I rely on my ancestral herbal formulas to treat diseases, but there are too many patients, and the herbs are consumed completely in one day, so we have to go out and get some more to treat the wounded who will be sent later." P4 was anxious when he heard it. "Why do you have to go there in person? Just tell me what herbs they are, and I will ask my soldiers to help you pick them and bring them back." No, Ren Xiaosu shook his head. "I also want to ask you to help pick them, but my family has asked me to do something. The secret recipe of herbs is our family's livelihood and must not be passed on to others. So please forgive me, I have to go out for a while." P4 immediately understood. "Of course I can't stop you from this, but I have to tell you in advance that you can't go to the direction of Dashi Mountain. The main force of our army is fighting the enemy in the north in the mountains." Ren Xiaosu nodded. He probably knew where he should go. Chapter 842 The Mysterious Sniper. The Dashi Mountain line is not the main battlefield. To be precise, the north of the Dashi Mountain line is where the fire will fight with the northern tribes. In Dashi Mountain, there is a mountain road that is the supply line to the north for the fire, which is also the lifeline. Because the main force of the fire went north a little late, the northern defense line was established in a hurry. I don't know when a nearly 1,000-man army was infiltrated by the enemy. These northern barbarians hid in Dashi Mountain for several days. Until the main force of the fire went north one after another, they began to intercept the fire troops in the mountains and block the transportation of supplies. It was these nearly 1,000 barbarians that caused the fire to lose soldiers and generals here. It's not that the fire's combat effectiveness is too weak, but too many complex factors have led to the current situation. On the one hand, Wang did not inform the fire of the news they received in advance, which led to the main force of the fire being concentrated in the south, and never thought that there would be enemies in the north. By the time they knew it, it was a little late. On the other hand, the fire had not really fought with the other party before, so it was not very clear about the other party's combat method. These northern barbarians relied on their strong physical fitness and easily blocked the Spark troops in the mountains. The terrain in the mountains is complex, and the northern barbarians seem to have figured out the terrain long ago, and they know this place better than the Spark. The Spark never seemed to have thought that there would be such a fierce battle in the north, so they have never paid much attention to the Dashishan Mountain, the lifeline of the north. Come to think of it, no one thought that there would be so many enemies in the north. Even the grassland people didn't expect it. Fighting in Dashishan, the Spark even felt that this was not their home ground, but the opponents. After a few days, the Spark probably figured out the situation. Almost all of these northern barbarians have T3 physical fitness, and occasionally they will see those comparable to T4, which is very difficult. Even though the Spark has been operating this land for a long time, the main force of their troops is mostly T1 and T2, and most of the officers are only T3 level. It's not that the Spark is too poor to produce genetic drugs, but as they said themselves, whether you are T1 or T5, this upper limit has been written into your genes at birth, and your fate is already determined. Genetic drugs are not omnipotent, but most people can only be upgraded to T1 or T2, and there is a price for upgrading. There is a secret among the fire: the genetically modified warriors will have a slightly shorter lifespan, and the higher the T level, the more so. So far, no one has seen a T5 who lives to 40 years old. Most T5s died of cancer. This is probably the imperfection that P5092 said to Ren Xiaosu. How does cancer appear? Cancer originates from genetic mutations in human cells. Human cells are constantly dividing and replicating at all times. In the process of division and replication, errors occur. When the human immune recognition function is normal, the body will correct it and cause it to die naturally. However, there are occasional situations where the immune recognition function is impaired, and the wrongly replicated cells are not recognized, and tumors are formed over time. Because of genetic modification, T5's immune system has begun to confuse the judgment of wrong cells, so it is very easy to get cancer. The reason why the fire wants to find the number 001 experiment is that the number 001 experiment is the most perfect cancer patient. The concept of T1 is about 1.5 times the physical fitness of an adult. According to Ren Xiaosu's palace system, a normal adult's physical fitness is 3, T1 is 4.5, T2 is 6, T3 is 9, T4 is 15, and T5 is 21. So when Ren Xiaosu's strength was only 13.5 before, he could only rely on Laosu when facing T5. He could never beat him head-on. When he was in the Holy Mountain, Laosu's strength was 27. At that time, the battle with T5 could basically end within 10 minutes, just like an adult beating a teenager. And now, Ren Xiaosu can also try to fight against T5 himself. Of course, this does not mean that Ren Xiaosu really wants to find a T5 to practice when facing a powerful enemy. It is just a comparison. At this time, Ren Xiaosu is worried about where to go to kill the enemy, but P4 said not to go to the Dashishin line. This was of course a kind reminder to P4, but to Ren Xiaosu, it was no different from giving directions. With P4's farewell gaze, Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin left the forward base and walked into the night of the wilderness. One afternoon later, in Deshi Mountain, dozens of combat teams were conducting a carpet search of the mountain in a fan-shaped pattern. P5092 was watching the screen in the command vehicle at the rear. The screen was divided into more than 10 pieces, and each shot was a real-time picture taken by the camera equipment attached to the helmet of the team leader of each combat team. Turn to the 9 o'clock direction and pay attention to concealment 2 kilometers ahead. Another main force had an encounter with the barbarians there yesterday. I suspect that they are close to their hiding place, P5092 said calmly, and his words were immediately transmitted to the headset of P3 in the mountain. Because of the importance of the transportation line of Dashishin, the main force led by P5092 simply stayed and planned to clear the entire mountain range to prevent the remaining barbarians in the mountain from becoming a hidden danger in the future. After receiving the order, the combat team in the mountain immediately moved forward to the 9 o'clock direction. The team of 30 people moved forward silently in the mountain. The guns had been opened, and each combat team had 4 people equipped with handheld grenade launchers. Ordinary guns may not be able to kill the barbarians even if they fired around from a long distance, so heavy firepower must be used. At this time, a combat team entered a mountain. They were alert to the surroundings, but they did not prevent 2 sturdy figures from jumping down from the mountain in the air. You have to know that this is a straight wall, and the mountain is nearly 20 meters above the ground. Ordinary people will be either dead or disabled if they jump down. But these 2 northern barbarians didn't care at all. They just fell from the sky and chopped down the giant axe. The members of the combat team looked up when they heard the noise, but it was too late. They could only see the huge axe falling on their heads. P5092 frowned when he saw this, because when the team leader looked up, the huge axe seemed to be chopped towards him on the screen. However, P5092 did not panic. He immediately instructed the frontline commanders of dozens of combat teams to assemble and prepare to surround and kill the two barbarians. P5 sighed in his heart. Although the two barbarians were bound to die, the combat team that was attacked was afraid that they would be sacrificed. But at this moment, the chest of the barbarian who was getting closer and closer on the screen suddenly burst into blood, and then the huge body seemed to be pushed by some force and crashed straight into the mountain wall. The power that came from nowhere abruptly interrupted the barbarian's chopping action. P5092 asked in confusion on the communication channel, "What happened?" "Sir, it was snipers. Two snipers shot and hit the two barbarians at the same time," the frontline commander replied. "We only heard the sound of gunfire. It should be a large caliber anti-material sniper rifle, but we don't know where the snipers are." Snipers. P5092 was a little confused. He would not send out snipers before reconnaissance. Otherwise, it would be a disaster if the snipers and the barbarians met. Therefore, these two snipers were not from their spark at all. It was strange. Where did these snipers come from? And they were very powerful. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 843, Violent Sniper. P5092. The reason why these two snipers are so powerful is that these two seemingly simple shots are not simple. First of all, the frontline commander said that the sniper's position could not be determined, but the net they cast during the carpet search was very large, and so many people could not determine the other party's position, so the sniper must be at least 900 meters away. From 900 meters away, two shots hit the barbarian's chest and killed him with one shot. This is not something that everyone can do. You have to know that these two barbarians had been hiding before. From their appearance to the fall of the axe, it only took a short second. When the sniper found that the barbarian had appeared, he had to calculate the trajectory immediately. Then, as the barbarian fell, the sniper needed to pull the trigger to let the bullet fly across the sky and land accurately on the barbarian's chest. The frontline commander asked in the communication channel, "Sir, should we hunt down these two snipers?" P5092 thought for a moment and said, "Search the nearby barbarians first, be careful. These people look burly and sturdy, but they are actually very smart and like to ambush in secret. As for the snipers, at least now it seems that they have the same goal as us, so we can look for them after the investigation is completed. It's not that we don't want to look for them, but we have to distinguish the primary from the secondary. Moreover, with a powerful enemy at hand, since both sides' goal is to kill the barbarians, Huazhong will naturally not regard them as enemies. Even if they are found, they hope that they can join the united front of Huazhong and King, instead of killing these two snipers." The entire Dashishan is now divided into 39 areas on the map. What P5092 needs to do is to search these 39 areas one by one. Today, he has only searched Area 12 and encountered barbarians. According to the previous battles, there are at least 400 barbarians hiding in this Dashishan. P5092 didn't care about this. The dozens of combat teams were just his advance reconnaissance troops. Once he encountered a large number of barbarians, he would immediately put all his troops into the battlefield to complete the encirclement and suppression of the barbarians. However, after the entire number 12 area was searched, the dozens of combat teams on the front line did not find any other barbarians. It seemed that it would take several days or even half a month to clear the entire Dashishan. "Sir, what should we do now?" the frontline commander asked. P5092 said calmly, "Now go find the two snipers, at least find their shooting location. I need to judge the strength of these two snipers. The snipers must have left. No sniper would stay there stupidly after firing, but as long as they could find the location where they fired, they could confirm how many meters away the other party fired." As a result, it was not until the evening that a combat team found clues about the two snipers in Area 13. P5092 frowned. No wonder he couldn't find the two snipers. It turned out that the other party hit the target in Area 12 and Area 13. He took a pen and wrote down the position of the snipers on the map, and then measured the distance from the snipers to the barbarian who had been hit before. He was surprised to find that the distance between the two snipers and the target was about 1,200 meters. It was farther than the 900 meters he had imagined. 1,200 meters. This is also an extremely outstanding sniper. How come there are two of them in Dashi Mountain at once? P5092 lowered his head and thought. He looked at the adjutant. Is there any information about the joint action of the two snipers recently? These two are so powerful, they must be famous. The adjutant said, I will submit your request to the intelligence department and let them compare the suspected targets. However, this matter will take some time and may not get the results we want. Okay, P5092 nodded. Think about it carefully. Are there any more famous snipers recently? I know that there is a group with a sniper who is particularly powerful, but they only have one sniper. The adjutant asked in confusion, are you talking about the operator of the white mask? Yes, that's them too, said P5092. They shouted in the communication channel, Sir, we found a suspicious location. There are signs of collapse where someone has been lying in the weeds here. After that, all the combat teams of the reconnaissance sequence began to gather at the 11 o'clock direction and once again launched a carpet search within a 1-kilometer radius of the location where the clues were found. P5092 waited quietly in the command vehicle to see if there were any discoveries, but he did not have too high expectations. After all, it had been more than 4 hours since the two snipers opened fire. However, at this moment, a cry of surprise suddenly came from the communication channel. There are actually two barbarian bodies here. P5092 was stunned for a moment. Specific situation. The frontline commander had already rushed to the place where the bodies were hidden. The bodies of the two barbarians were simply covered with branches, so they were easily discovered. They're not gunshot wounds. A rough autopsy information came from the front line. Among the two people, one had a sharp weapon piercing his neck. I don't know how sharp the weapon was, but it actually broke his spine directly in his neck. The other person's wounds were scratches on his chest, a piercing wound on his heart, and a broken left arm. I suspect that the barbarian whose neck was pierced was ambushed by someone, and then the barbarian who was traveling with him wanted to kill the enemy, but he didn't expect the other party to cut off his left arm with a knife. The blade cut through his left arm and then passed across his chest. Then the murderer drew his knife and stabbed it straight into the barbarian's heart. Report completed. There was still an electric current sound in the communication channel. P5092 fell silent after listening to the simple autopsy report. He could even imagine the flying blade and blood through these simple words, and how cruel the murderer was. The blade cut through the barbarian's arm muscles, and then cut through the hard bones. The broken arm and the barbarian's surprised eyes intertwined. The killer's blade passed through the barbarian's chest, and suddenly sheathed the knife to give a fatal blow, all in one go. But P5092 couldn't figure it out. He thought it was just two snipers. How come a master who was so fierce in close combat suddenly appeared? Did the snipers have other comrades? Or were these two snipers very fierce? P5092 was worried that it would be dangerous for these two snipers to meet the barbarian at close range. Now it seems that the barbarian is in danger. Let's pack up, said P5092. We'll camp tonight and keep on level 1 alert to prevent night attacks by the barbarians. After that, he turned off the communication equipment in his hand. The adjutant next to him asked, Sir, will these two snipers become a hidden danger for us? P5092 shook his head. Don't think too much. Anyone who can appear here at this time to repel the enemy together is a friend. As for whether they will still be friends in the future, we have to wait until the war is over. Daily routine of begging for monthly tickets. Begging for monthly tickets. Chapter 844 Wish. When you are in the wilderness and there are enemies around you, never light an open fire, because the bonfire will make you a target in the dark night. Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin sat on the crown of a big tree. The dense branches of the tree could hide their figures at night. Here, have some. Ren Xiaosu took out a piece of chocolate from the palace and handed it to Yang Xiaojin. I think there may not be many barbarians in this Dashishin mountain. It is only a matter of time for them to wipe out these barbarians. Well, Yang Xiaojin took the chocolate and took a bite. What are your plans next? These barbarians like to sneak attack people. They are very cunning. Let's not capsize in the ditch. It's not cunning. Ren Xiaosu shook his head. Maybe you don't come into contact with this kind of people, but I actually sensed a familiar breath from them, the breath of hunters. Just like cats, when you turn your back to them, they will instinctively launch a sneak attack on you, without even considering whether the sneak attack can succeed. And these northern barbarians are accustomed to sneak attacks. which is also the instinct of hunters. After Ren Xiaosu and his team left the forward base, they first pretended to walk eastward, and then quickly turned to the direction of Dashishan Mountain after walking for a long time. After entering the mountain for a long time, Ren Xiaosu immediately discovered the behavior habits of these northern barbarians. These people were killing the people of the Central Plains as prey. Perhaps many people thought that it was just an ordinary ambush, but Ren Xiaosu found that the location where these people were hiding must be downwind. When facing humans, there is actually no need to hide in the downwind direction. After all, human sense of smell is not very good. Only when hunting wild beasts in the wilderness do you need to be so careful to prevent the prey from smelling the human scent in advance. If it could be a coincidence once, then Ren Xiaosu and his team met twice. It was definitely not a coincidence. This was the other party's subconscious habit. What is the North like? Yang Xiaojun wondered. If everyone is a hunter, it's a bit exaggerated. Who cares what it is like? Ren Xiaosu sneered. When it comes to hunting, these northern barbarians may not be his opponents. Moreover, this is the South, Ren Xiaosu's home court. No matter how skilled the other party was at hunting, he would not know the wilderness and mountains of the South better than Ren Xiaosu. Yang Xiaojun glanced at him. Do you have a plan? Ren Xiaosu chuckled and said, let's not talk about this, how about we talk about something more sensitive? Sensitive topics. Yang Xiaojun was puzzled for a moment. What do you think of the political situation in Central Plains? Ren Xiaosu, I'm not talking about this. Yang Xiaojun glanced at him. Okay, you are getting braver, not bad. Ahem, it's okay. At this time, the starlight above the sky was like a sea. The two sat side by side on the thick branches, looking up at the silver ocean above their heads. Yang Xiaojun suddenly asked, what do you want to do most after returning to the northwest? Ren Xiaosu looked at the starry sky, and his thoughts were suddenly pulled away by this question. I want to see the world outside Fortress 178, and then go back to plant crops. Maybe I can be a cardiac surgeon in Fortress 178, and then get a salary every month to support our family. When I return home covered in cold air and take off my scarf, I will tell you that I am back, and then I will hear the gurgling sound of soup stewing on the stove. Yang Xiaojun was stunned by this sentence. For some reason, she could suddenly imagine that picture and had a little expectation. Putting all the trivial things Ren Xiaosu said together, he just wanted to have a stable home. It was a very common wish to grow some crops or be an ordinary surgeon and see his wife when he returned home. However, even this simple wish was about to become a luxury in this era. Aren't you going to be your young marshal? Yang Xiaojun asked curiously. How can I be qualified to be a young marshal? Ren Xiaosu leaned against the tree and whispered, in fact, I don't know why Mr. Zhang thinks I can do it, but I have been thinking, shouldn't I find someone who is more mature and steady? I am too young for the position of commander. Although I know he is not going to let me do it now, I feel that I am used to being alone and may not be able to bear the responsibility he expects. It doesn't matter, I can do anything, Yang Xiaojun said, looking at the vast starry sky. By the way, what do you want to do most in the future? Ren Xiaosu asked. However, Yang Xiaojun did not speak for a long time, until she slowly leaned on Ren Xiaosu's shoulder and whispered, I'll tell you later. In this bloody battlefield, no one would have thought that a pair of young men and women were snuggling together. The world is big, but there are few people who can give each other warmth. Life in this era is full of darkness, betrayal, and transactions, so that as long as there is a little warmth, everyone will feel that it is hard-won. In the early morning, outside the camp of the main force led by P-5092 and Dashishan, dozens of soldiers from the cooking squad carried iron buckets and walked towards the river. They were responsible for replenishing water for cooking today. A main force has tens of thousands of people. They cannot rely on transportation to solve the water problem, so the army usually walks along the river during its march. Soldiers walked unsteadily in groups of two, carrying iron buckets. Another soldier said mysteriously, have you heard from the reconnaissance battalion? They encountered barbarians in the mountains yesterday, and almost killed a member of the combat team. Fortunately, 2 snipers saved them. I heard about it, said the leader of the cooking squad who is responsible for carrying water. I don't know where these 2 snipers came from. It's exciting to think about it. If I hadn't had poor eyesight, I might have been a sniper. Look at those snipers in our army. They are so awesome every day, and they have to cook their own meals. In the army, being able to cook your own meals is a very face-saving thing. However, just when they walked to the river suddenly stirred up waves, and a huge axe came from the water in the river. The water splashed first, and the axe came later. The axe split the water curtain layer by layer and came to the front of the fire soldier. At this time, some people couldn't help but scream. This axe was too sudden. No one expected that the barbarian would hide in the river near them and wait for a sneak attack. As they were surprised, 2 more barbarians emerged from the river, their axes extremely sharp. But before the axes could hit the spark soldiers, they suddenly saw blood mist blooming on the head of the barbarian in front. Sniper. Chapter 845, Hunter and Prey. The blood mist that exploded above the barbarian's head was still lingering in the air, but this shot did not seem to scare away the rest of the barbarians. There were still 3 barbarians ambushing in the river, holding huge axes, like ghosts in the river. When the kitchen team came to the river to fetch water, they didn't even bring the most basic weapons. To be honest, they didn't expect that there would be enemies hiding here. A barbarian shouted, "Don't retreat. The sniper is here and we can't run away. Kill as many as you can." There was a river behind them, and it would take time even if they jumped into the river again, so these barbarians knew that they would definitely die, but they wanted to take a few people with them before they died. The remaining 3 barbarians continued to chase and hack at the kitchen team, moving extremely quickly, but before they could take 2 steps, 2 more sniper bullets flew over and directly pierced the hearts of the 2 barbarians. The soldiers in the kitchen team were so scared that they wanted to throw away their buckets, but they found that the 4 barbarians who had just emerged from the river were reduced to only 1 in the blink of an eye. While they were still in shock, the team leader of the kitchen squad said harshly, "Don't scare yourselves. There's only 1 person left. If this can scare us, it will be too embarrassing to talk about it when we go back. Go together and kill him." At this time, the blood of the kitchen squad was also aroused. Although they had never fought in a war, they were also soldiers who had undergone formal military training. As they spoke, the cook stopped retreating and slowly approached the remaining barbarian. In just 5 seconds, this group of cooks had formed a battle formation. The barbarian stared at everyone coldly, sneered with an axe in his hand, and suddenly charged the next second. The team leader of the kitchen squad roared and rushed up, "Fuck him." But the sniper did not intend to give them this opportunity to show their faces. The 3 roars of the sniper rifle in the distance had not stopped yet, and the rumbling sound was still in their ears. As a result, the barbarian's chest burst into blood again, and the leather coat on his body looked like a broken rag doll that was blown to pieces. The battle started and ended quickly. The group of people in the kitchen squad stood there in confusion. "Is this the end?" The squad leader said to a soldier, "Go and report to the commander, and tell him that we were ambushed by the barbarians." After that, the 2 cooks ran madly towards the barracks. In more than 10 minutes, they brought P-5092 and others to the river. A group of soldiers surrounded P-5092, holding explosion-proof shields in their hands, fearing that the sniper hiding somewhere might have evil intentions. As a result, P-5092 waved his hands and said, "Get out of the way. You protected me so well that I can't see anything." The adjutant said anxiously, "Sir, your body can't withstand this sniper rifle." P-5092 pushed away the soldiers around him and said with a smile, "Don't worry, these 2 snipers are not our enemies. There is no need to be so scared." At this moment, Ren Xiaosu, who was hiding in the distance, saw P-5092 squatting next to the barbarian's body through the sight. He muttered, "Isn't this P-5092? He doesn't seem to be afraid of snipers at all. He is quite brave." P-5092 squatted next to the barbarian and asked calmly, "You said before that they suddenly appeared when we came to fetch water, right? Go and send 2 T-4s to the river to see if there are any clues." After that, the 2 T-4s took off their coats and dived into the icy cold river water. Then they went ashore and said, "These barbarians should have been ambushing here a long time ago. There are fish skeletons that have just been eaten at the bottom of the river. The barbarians caught those fish in the river and ate them raw without any processing." P-5092 nodded, "These bastards really like to attack by surprise. They guessed that someone would come to the river to replenish water in the morning, so they ambushed here. Pass the order to me. From now on, everyone entering and leaving the camp must be equipped with live ammunition and handheld grenade launchers. The kitchen team, engineers and other technical troops must be escorted by 2 combat teams when they go out. Received, the adjutant wrote it down. However, what puzzled P5092 was more, 4 barbarians, each of them was shot dead. Even we didn't know there were barbarians hiding here. How could the 2 snipers predict it in advance? This feeling was very strange, as if the barbarians were hunting, but they didn't expect that they were also regarded as prey by others. The barbarians hid in the mountains and claimed to be experienced hunters, with an attitude of playing the Central Plains people at their fingertips, but they did not expect that there were hunters in the mountains who were more experienced than them, who also regarded them as prey, and knew what he wanted to do and could guess where they were hiding. P5092 looked up at the other side of the river, and actually waved in the direction of Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin to express his gratitude. Ren Xiaosu was happy. This P5092 is quite capable. Let's go and continue to look for other barbarians. Ren Xiaosu was sure that P5092 could not see them. Even he needed the assistance of a sighting scope to see P5092 clearly. The other party should have judged the direction of the trajectory from the bullet holes on the barbarian's body. The adjutant beside P5092 looked at the commander and waved, and asked in confusion, "Commander, have you seen the 2 snipers?" "No," P5092 smiled, "but I know they must still be there." "Okay, let's go back. We will go into the mountain again in an hour. We will search 12 more areas today and drive all these barbarians to the vicinity of Longton Canyon. Then are we going to ignore these 2 snipers? There are suddenly more uncertain factors on the battlefield, which may interfere with our combat plan. At least we have to get in touch with them. It would be better if they can cooperate with our actions," the adjutant asked. "No matter," P5092 said jokingly, "don't you think that with these 2 people, we will have fewer deaths? This is the most important thing. Remember, our real battlefield is on the northern defense line, and the barbarians here are just a chance for us to warm up. Before arriving at the northern front, I need the soldiers to have enough morale to face more cruel things." An hour later, when the main force entered Dashishan again to complete today's encirclement and suppression mission, they suddenly found something strange. Report to the commander. The front line has sent back news that 3 barbarian bodies were found in Mangling, Area 17. Report to the commander. The front line has sent back news that 2 barbarian bodies were found in Kunjian, Area 15. Report to the commander. In just half a day, the main force responsible for searching the Dashishan Mountains found more than 20 barbarian bodies in one go. Among these bodies, some were killed by sniper rifles, and some were killed directly by sharp weapons. There were 7 barbarian bodies in the area with the most bodies. These people had obviously experienced direct combat, but they all died. In other words, the people who were helping them to clean up the barbarians in the mountain had the strength to fight 7 barbarians head-on. Chapter 846 The Real Hunter. It looks like an encounter, the adjutant analyzed as he checked the 7 barbarian corpses on the screen in the command vehicle. It's not an encounter, P5092 shook his head and said, "Look at the terrain here. There is only one mountain road in front and behind. The terrain is relatively narrow and it is a semi-enclosed space. What does the commander mean?" The adjutant was not stupid. He immediately reacted, "Among the many incident sites, only here are the most barbarians." 7 appeared at once. They are likely responsible for hunting down and killing the 2 snipers, but they were led here by the snipers. The special thing about the terrain here is that when the barbarians find that they can't beat them, they can't run away even if they want to. So the 2 snipers were confident enough to lead them here. "That's right," P5092 nodded. "If the 7 people fled separately, it would take some effort to catch them, but there is only one road in front and behind. Even if the barbarians escape, they can only run in one direction." "Then these 2 snipers are too cruel," the adjutant asked in confusion. "Anyone who can kill 7 barbarians head-on must be a superhuman." "More than that," P5092 shook his head again, "those 2 people were not injured. They had completely overwhelming strength against the 7 barbarians. I believe that even if the number of barbarians increased, the result would still be exactly the same. So they were able to kill 7 barbarians because there were only 7, not because they could only defeat 7. Therefore, it was difficult for them to infer the strength of the sniper from the number of barbarians. They could only know that the other party was very powerful. Even if T5 came, it would probably be the same. There are not many such people in the world." The adjutant asked in confusion, "Do you think it is possible that it is the person you mentioned before, the operator of the white mask?" "It is possible. If he came, it would make sense. P5092 nodded and said, continue the carpet search, mark every place where the barbarian bodies are found on the map, and also the number of barbarians who died. The combat staff on the side hurriedly got busy according to the instructions of the superior. As a result, when he marked with a red pen, everyone found that the entire map was densely packed with red. P5092 sighed, their range of activities is too large. They have killed more than 50 barbarians in just half a day. If they wait for 2 more days, won't they kill all the barbarians in the entire Dashi mountain? However, what P5092 couldn't understand the most was how the people who hunted the barbarians in the mountain could find the barbarians accurately. Was it because they knew the barbarians too well? At this moment, gunshots were heard in the communication channel of the command vehicle. The adjutant picked up the communicator and asked calmly, "What's going on?" "Report to the commander, there was a sniper shot about 400 meters away from us. I think the 2 snipers are very close to us." While he was speaking, another gunshot was heard, followed by a series of sniper shots. It seemed that there was an extremely fierce exchange of fire over there. P5092 made a prompt decision and said, "Find their shooting target and move closer. Don't try to get close to the 2 snipers." After that, 10 combat teams among the combatants responsible for the carpet search on the front line immediately started to move. It seems that the straight line distance of 400 meters is very close, but it may take dozens of minutes to run this straight line distance across mountains and ridges. When they arrived at the battlefield, the sound of sniper rifles had stopped long ago, and the sniper did not know where he had gone. Then, the Spark soldiers quickly began to look for the sniper's shooting target, spreading outward from the location of the sniper rifle sound, searching all areas within a radius of 1.5 kilometers. If it were an ordinary sniper, in fact, their search radius of 800 meters would be enough. Most snipers are very powerful if they can accurately hit the target within 800 meters, but these 2 snipers are too powerful and are the best among snipers. Soon, they found the battlefield by a river. At this time, more than 20 barbarians were lying by the river. The bodies stretched all the way from the river to the woods. The blood of those barbarians kept flowing out, turning the mud on the shore red. On the ground, there were also scattered water bags made of animal skins. The water bags were opened with the stoppers, but they were empty. The Spark soldiers slowly approached, and a command came from the communication channel, "Check the footprints in the woods to confirm whether anyone in their team has escaped." Soon, the Spark soldiers reported, confirmed, this group of barbarians was completely wiped out by the river. There are only footprints from the way in the woods, and no footprints from the way out. Because the soil on the riverbank was damp, and the barbarians were tall and strong, it was impossible to completely hide their footprints. P5092 frowned in the command vehicle. So, these 2 snipers probably predicted in advance that these barbarians would come here to get water, and then ambushed them in advance. He took out the map, but couldn't see what was special about the place where these barbarians got water. Strange, why are they so sure that the barbarians will come here to get water? There are 3 rivers passing through the whole mountain, and more than 10 streams. Why is it here? The adjutant wondered. Maybe this is their special ability. P5092 sighed. In the morning, these barbarians calculated that some soldiers would go to the river to get water, so they ambushed in the river and encountered snipers. At noon, the barbarians were ambushed by others because of a trivial matter of fetching water, and they encountered snipers again. This feeling is like there is a person who can predict the future on the battlefield, controlling the balance between life and death. Originally, some Spark soldiers always felt that they were being looked at like prey when searching for barbarians. But now, the real hunters have come, and the barbarians have become prey. P5092 said to the frontline commander on the communication channel, "Leave your individual rations where they are, and then retreat. Don't stay there." The adjutant asked, "Are you going to leave the individual rations for them?" "They may not take them, but I believe they can see my good intentions," P5092 said. While talking, P5092 kept staring at the map, and then marked the location of the river and the number of deaths on the map with a red pen. But at this moment, he suddenly realized, the killing range of this sniper is like a fan. Why do I feel that they have the same idea as us, and are all driving the barbarians towards the Longton Canyon? In the battle plan of P5092, he planned to force all the barbarians to the vicinity of Longton Canyon and then wipe them out in one go, but the other party did the same. Did the other party do it unintentionally, or did the other party judge his intention through the movements of the scouts in front, and then cooperate with him to complete the plan? If it is the latter, then the sniper's intuition is a bit too sharp. Please vote for the monthly ticket. Please vote for the monthly ticket. Friends who read on QQ, if you are happy reading, please vote for the monthly ticket. The first sequence now basically only has the opportunity to be exposed on the monthly ticket list. Thank you to Yimuhiki and Moyu for becoming the new allies of this book. The two bosses are generous. Chapter 847, Grab Things. The Dashishin battlefield was originally a battlefield for the fire and the barbarians, but because of the arrival of two people, the situation suddenly became confusing. Not only was P5092 curious about Ren Xiaosu's true identity, but even the barbarians were somewhat suspicious. The number of deaths in the past 2 days suddenly increased, and what they could not accept the most was that the death of their comrades was meaningless. These barbarians, without exception, were all killed by ambushes. Some were shot to death in the dark, and some were killed by someone hiding in an unexpected place. To be honest, the entire Expeditionary Corps had never fought such a cowardly battle. They didn't even know where the enemy was, but so many people were killed. In the night, a team of 5 barbarians was marching northward in the woods. They had discovered that all directions were blocked by the main force of the fire force, with a large number of troops stationed and temporary fortifications built. Under the command of P5092, this main force pushed the barbarians northward step by step. It seemed that the barbarians had no choice but to retreat to Longton Gorge. The 5-man team of barbarians advanced in silence. They shuttled through the woods in a straight line, and no one even spoke during the period. However, their speed was not very fast, because in the process of walking, they also needed to clear the traces of their own passage to avoid being discovered and tracked by the fire troops behind. However, as they walked, the sergeant in the front suddenly looked back and he was shocked to find that there were only 4 people left in the team. The sergeant stood still with an axe and turned around and asked coldly, "Where's Valerie?" It was not until then that the other few people turned back and were surprised to find that the companion named Valerie had disappeared. During this period, they did not even hear the movement of Valerie leaving the team. The corporal asked the 4th barbarian in the team, "Gennady, where's Valerie? He has been behind you all the time. Did you notice that he left the team?" As soon as this was said, the others also became confused. During their march, almost everyone kept a distance of 3 meters. It might be understandable that the person in front didn't hear the movement, but Gennady must know where Valerie went. But Gennady didn't answer the question, but continued to walk forward, and his walking posture was a bit stiff. The moonlight shone through the branches and leaves of the forest on everyone, mottled like ice flakes, and Gennady's weird walking posture seemed to make the other 2 people's scalps numb. When Gennady walked, there was a ticking sound, as if a sticky liquid fell on the rotten leaves on the ground. The corporal suddenly raised his axe and pointed it at Gennady. "Stop, don't get closer, or I will chop you to death now." The rest of the people also found something wrong. They raised their axes to be alert, but it was too late to find out that something was wrong. Suddenly, a young man holding a black knife flashed behind Gennady, with a slight smile on his face. When he flashed out, Gennady's sturdy body no longer had the strength to support it, and fell straight to the side. It was not until then that the barbarians realized that Gennady had been closing his eyes just now, but the mottled shadows of the trees made them unable to see clearly for a while. Gennady had died a long time ago, and the dripping sound was the sound of blood falling to the ground. There was no time to think about it. The boy in the woods had already swung his knife. The barbarian who was the first to bear the brunt raised his axe to block the black knife shadow. He even thought about how to kill the enemy in front of him. For them, killing the enemy never seemed to be a particularly difficult thing. They just needed to use their strength to completely crush him. But the scene that surprised the barbarians happened. When the black knife shadow passed over the axe made of unknown metal was cut into 2 pieces, and the blade didn't even stop for a moment. Ren Xiaosu did not stop in front of this person. Before the shadow of the knife had died down, he had already brushed past the person in front of him, as if he was faster than the knife. Then, the next person watched his companion cut into 2 pieces, and before he could think, Ren Xiaosu had already arrived in front of him. The remaining 2 barbarians had seen the sharpness of the black knife with their own eyes, so they would no longer foolishly use their axes to chop. You know, the axes of the Expeditionary Corps are all made of alloy. Who would have thought that this axe that is always effective would be cut like tofu? In a flash, they realized that the inexplicable deaths of their companions in the past 2 days were probably caused by the young man in front of them. Thinking of this, the two barbarians roared and rushed forward side by side. The shadows in the woods kept shaking, but suddenly their eyes blurred and they could not see Ren Xiaosu in front of them. Quick! Too fast! This thought flashed through the minds of the two barbarians at the same time. When they reacted, Ren Xiaosu had already stepped to the left of the two. The boy stepped on rotten leaves, which had accumulated and covered countless layers. The rotten leaves suddenly exploded under the huge force of the step, and flew around Ren Xiaosu like crows. The barbarian on the left instinctively swung his axe, but he found that he could no longer swing it halfway. At this time, he was horrified to find that the boy had grabbed the handle of his axe from the middle and took it away. The barbarian didn't want to let go, but the axe handle was so powerful that the boy just casually waved his hand and threw him up with the axe. The barbarian had no choice but to let go of the axe, and the whole person flew out. Ren Xiaosu weighed the axe in his hand and muttered, "I just wanted to save some axes to play with, but I didn't expect it to be so tight." Now his physical fitness has reached an astonishing 16.5 and 16.1, and these barbarians only weigh 300 kilograms, so throwing them is as easy as playing. As he was talking, the barbarian who was thrown out hit the tree in the waist. The severe pain in his waist almost made him go into shock. With a crisp sound, the barbarian's lumbar vertebra was broken, and the thick tree trunk made a crackling sound as it could not bear the weight. The plant fibers broke one by one under the impact. The sergeant was the last one. Seeing that Ren Xiaosu's strength was not something he could compete with, he turned around and ran. But Ren Xiaosu raised his hand and threw the axe in his hand. The axe made a buzzing sound when it flew in the air, as if the air was being blown to both sides. The sergeant had not run 10 meters away when the axe had already hit his back, and even his spine was split. Ren Xiaosu walked over and picked up the two axes. He looked at the axe that was more than 1 meter long inside. It's the 32nd one. In the past 2 days, Ren Xiaosu suddenly became interested in the barbarian's axe. He didn't know what material this axe was made of, but he felt that it was comparable to the nano knife he had seen before. Although he didn't know what use it had, after all, he had a black knife and didn't need it. But the process of stealing other people's things and then saving them up was always very happy. Chapter 848 Game Between Hunters. The axe was very heavy. If the barbarians were not so strong, they would not have used such a heavy weapon. Ren Xiaosu put the two axes into the palace and prepared to leave, but when he turned around, he suddenly saw the shadowy uninvited guests in the woods. The sound of heavy footsteps trampling rotten leaves came from all directions, as if dozens of bears were approaching quickly. The moonlight was sparse, but Ren Xiaosu could still see the axes reflecting cold light in the woods when he looked around. It turned out that the 5 people were just baits, just like Ren Xiaosu had to put millet and breadcrumbs under the black pot to catch sparrows. If you want to be a good hunter, you must first know how to use bait. Hunters who are reluctant to put bait are not good hunters. Therefore, this group of barbarians who are good at hunting even use their companions as bait just to get rid of Ren Xiaosu. The other party spent a lot of money. But it is understandable. After all, too many of them have been killed by Ren Xiaosu in the past 2 days. Now using 5 people to fish him out may sound a bit cruel, but at least it will reduce more casualties. At this time, when the barbarians approached the area with Ren Xiaosu as the center in a radius of 50 meters, they began to slow down and adjust their formation in an orderly manner to prevent Ren Xiaosu from escaping. Ren Xiaosu carefully looked at the other party. To be honest, he had never faced so many barbarians at the same time. The other party's formation was tight and solid, which gave him a huge sense of oppression. In the open giant net, Ren Xiaosu was like a lone wolf who had lost his way and would eventually be surrounded by hunters. When approaching, the barbarians whimpered in an unknown tone, which seemed extremely desolate and fierce. This tone was like a war cry in battle. When the prey found itself surrounded by this sound, it would gradually lose its mind and become anxious. The barbarians were getting closer and closer. When they saw the boy in the woods clearly, they felt that they had won. It must be said that these barbarians were indeed good hunters. If it were someone else, they would probably really die here. Even a T5 fire seed could not fight so many barbarians. Unfortunately, they surrounded Ren Xiaosu. In an instant, Ren Xiaosu pointed his black knife diagonally to the west. The barbarians were stunned for a moment. They didn't understand what the boy was going to do. But the barbarian in charge of the siege felt something was wrong, because he saw the boy was laughing. "No. It's a trick." The barbarian roared. As soon as he finished speaking, blood bloomed on his chest, and then the roar of snipers came from a distance, like a prelude to a stage. The red blood shone brightly under the moonlight, and the wind blew in the woods, and it seemed that even the branches were applauding. Ren Xiaosu looked at the barbarian beside him. The audience of this good show had already entered the scene. The next second, Ren Xiaosu did not retreat but advanced and killed into the crowd. He was alone in the crowd of barbarians, fighting calmly, and all enemies who might pose a threat to him would die suddenly beside him. Sniper bullets shuttled through the gaps in the woods, like a scalpel in the hands of a surgeon, accurately cutting open life. Wherever Ren Xiaosu went, the barbarians died. For a moment, the young man under the mottled silver light looked like the god of death. As mentioned before, a hunter who can't use bait can never be called a good hunter. These barbarians used the lives of their 5 companions as bait to lure out Ren Xiaosu, but Ren Xiaosu was also using himself as bait to perform a killing show. Comparing cruelty? Ren Xiaosu has never lost to anyone. From the perspective of the hunter profession, Ren Xiaosu has understood one thing after fighting for 2 days: these barbarians may have good hunting skills, but that was before he met him. This is a game between hunters, but there is no doubt that Ren Xiaosu won. The barbarians were so angry that they couldn't figure out why they couldn't kill the boy with so many people on their side. Not only could they not kill him, but they couldn't even get close to him. At this time, they found that the boy never looked behind him when fighting, just like an assassin who was determined to do what he wanted. When the smell of blood filled the woods, nothing in the world was worth him looking back. Enemies behind him? Naturally, someone would help him kill them. This was an absolute trust in his companions. Unknowingly, Ren Xiaosu had already killed his way through the encirclement of the barbarians. He suddenly looked forward in surprise, because there were no enemies in front of him. He suddenly turned around and laughed loudly. "Sorry, I killed too many." As he spoke, he turned back to fight. The barbarians felt humiliated. Dozens of them came to surround and kill the enemy, but not only did their encirclement break through, but they were also killed back by the enemy. However, in the clear rhythm of the sniper rifle, no one could complete the encirclement of the boy. They had never surrounded and killed the boy with more than 3 people at the same time. Once more than 3 people wanted to cooperate in close combat, they would be torn apart by the deadly sniper bullets in the dark night. "Retreat!" a barbarian roared. "Retreat!" Ren Xiaosu said with a smile. "It's a bit late to retreat now, don't go, I still have something to say to you from the bottom of my heart." As he said that, Ren Xiaosu stabbed the black knife in his hand into the heart of the barbarian in front of him, and then with a flick of his wrist, he crushed the other's strong heart. Until this moment, Ren Xiaosu finally felt that he had really done something. When he was in the clinic, he occasionally looked at the wounded who were constantly carried in at the door, and his mood would be a little depressed. In this era, even organizations like Spark will give up their interests because of foreign enemies. If someone else did this, Ren Xiaosu might not feel so much, but this is the organization he has always regarded as the most cold-blooded, but it stood up twice when the people of the Central Plains needed them. This touched Ren Xiaosu, who had always been hostile to Spark, and he also wanted to do something, so he came here. "I don't know what the problem of this era is." Ren Xiaosu walked slowly with a knife in hand. "Some people stick to the principles but have their legs broken. Some people just want to save the dying and the wounded but find that they can't save them. Some people want to plant flowers in a down-to-earth manner but are forced to go to Ginkgo Mountain. Some people just want to be a good person but are treated as fools. Some people just want to protect their mothers but are forced to become crazy. I don't know what the problem of this era is, but what I can do is probably to kill those who create problems. Now even you are here to cause trouble, so I will kill you first." Ren Xiaosu was full of murderous intent. He did not agree with Wang, Ho, or Qing. Along the way, he had seen too many people walking on different paths. Everyone was running towards the distance on their own paths, but he still had no like-minded people, just because he didn't know where he was going. Now, this question seems to have a vague answer. Maybe after killing some people, it will be clearer. Chapter 849 Different Paths. Why did Ren Xiaosu come here? Because he wanted to kill some barbarians? No, At least not at first. Because he agreed with Huazhong? No, even though Huazhong stood up for the justice of mankind twice, Ren Xiaosu still found it difficult to agree with their ruthlessness in executing their goals. In this world, not all those in power are greedy for enjoyment. In order to pursue true justice, Wang Shengzi believed that as long as humans no longer managed humans, the problem could be solved. The politician with lower body paralysis sat in a wheelchair, and even Wang was in his calculations. Huazhong could sacrifice anyone without hesitation, including himself, for the continuation of the human fire. They raised the butcher knife in one hand and the torch in the other, wanting to light the way for future generations. But this was not what Ren Xiaosu wanted, and perhaps he didn't know what he wanted. As he said, he disliked the phrase "we took a little detour" the most, because behind this phrase was a huge sacrifice that was unknown to others. In the woods, he killed the barbarians one by one, and his favorite person was behind him to protect him. At this time, he suddenly realized that he came to the Stashishan mountain to protect. This concept was not clear to the selfish him, but when he thought back, he stood at the door of the clinic and saw the wounded being carried in one by one. The cries of pain and crying of the people were intertwined, like people singing in loneliness and despair. At that moment, his heart was touched. He felt that it shouldn't be like this, the world shouldn't be like this. This feeling has never been so strong that he was a little angry, and then wanted to kill the people who caused the problem. Ren Xiaosu remembered the bitter expression on Wang Jing's face when he spoke. The other party said that the speed of saving people will never catch up with the speed of wounding people. He still remembered the thousands of people saluting in the cafeteria, and he remembered the thanks from the wounded comrades. "Woody, did you see that? Master will become a beam of light as you wish. This beam of light will start from today, burning from beginning to end, always bright." Ren Xiaosu slowly pulled a black knife out of the heart of the barbarian in front of him. "You are staying well in the north. Why do you come to the south to cause trouble for everyone? I read a sentence in a book before and didn't agree with it, but now I gradually understand it. One day you will also understand that the people of the Central Plains look like a pile of loose sand, but when you arrive, they will gather into a fist." After killing more people, Ren Xiaosu gradually understood why he felt a sense of belonging to the Northwest. Just because the Northwest never intended to fight for this world, they were just silently guarding the land behind them. If guarding is also a road, then there are hundreds of thousands of like-minded comrades waiting for him in the Northwest. I believe that the people of the Northwest are also on the way. Ren Xiaosu looked at the last few barbarians and smiled. "You will face the anger of everyone in the Barrier Alliance until you are burned to death." A barbarian said coldly, "You know nothing about the power of the Expeditionary Corps." Ren Xiaosu smiled, "You know nothing about the spiritual will of the Central Plains people. When disaster strikes, spiritual will is the first-order weapon for humans to face danger." After saying that, Ren Xiaosu rushed forward and killed all the enemies, leaving only corpses on the ground. We agreed to leave only corpses on the ground, so we should leave only corpses on the ground, so not even a single axe could be left. 3 hours later, the frontline commander of the main force of the Spark stood on the battlefield and wondered, "Why didn't I see a single axe? Where did the axes go? Maybe the people who killed them took them away." An officer beside him whispered, "There are more than 40 barbarians. Did they take all the axes away?" The frontline commander wondered. Suddenly, a figure with axes on his back appeared in his mind. He shook his head to get rid of the figure. "Communicator, help me get through to the commander." As he spoke, a communicator came over with a radio communication device on his back. The frontline commander picked up the microphone and said, "Commander, it seems that the snipers in the mountains were ambushed by the barbarians in a trap set here." "Ambush? Where are they?" P5092 frowned. He was worried that the two snipers were in trouble. As a result, the frontline commander sorted out his words and corrected his previous statement. "In fact, it is more like the two set a trap to ambush more than 40 barbarians. Please listen to my explanation. I checked the time of death here. The death locations of 5 people were separated from the others. In addition, judging from the time of death, they died earlier. So someone should have ambushed them first, and then more than 40 barbarians surrounded them from all directions. Some people fought in and out of the encirclement. Half of the barbarians died from knife wounds and half died from sniper wounds. I feel like one of the two used himself as bait and created the best shooting opportunity for the sniper." P5092 was silent in the command vehicle. He didn't know whether to say that the two were too brave or that they were too powerful. How strong must someone be to dare to put himself in the encirclement of the barbarians as bait? Moreover, the problem is that the other party really killed more than 40 barbarians. He could even imagine the other party's joy in fighting in and out of the encirclement. P5092 lowered his head and suddenly found that he had goosebumps on his arms. He even wanted to have such power. Yesterday, they were just surprised that these two people could fight 7 barbarians head-on, but today they killed nearly 50 of them for him to see. P5092 marked this place with a red pen on the map. He said calmly in the communication channel, "This is the last preset blocking point. Now the barbarians should have all retreated to Longton Canyon. The encirclement has been completed. Since someone has helped us do the most important thing in the early stage, we should finish it beautifully and not let people look down on us." As he said, the communication channel was fully opened, and P5092's voice sounded in the built-in communicators of all soldiers' helmets. "Everyone, this is the land of my fire seed. Since these northern barbarians dare to provoke us, let them stay forever. Please don't forget that you and I are fighting for the human fire seed. Let's go." P5092 completed the pre-war mobilization with just a simple sentence. The tens of thousands of main forces of the fire seed began to advance in the mountains, vowing to wipe out the barbarians in Longton Canyon. What then? Then they will continue to go north and kill more barbarians on the main battlefield in the north. However, at this moment, hundreds of barbarians suddenly jumped into the river upstream of the Kingayan River in Dashishan and swam downstream. The fish rushed towards them as if they had found their prey, but the next second, a barbarian suddenly took out a small bone from his arms. The bone was the knuckle of some creature. When it appeared in the river, the fish all dispersed in fear. Please give me a monthly ticket. Please give me a monthly ticket. Chapter 850 Attack the Camp. When the creatures in the wilderness began to change, the river began to become dangerous. In the early years, there were still people who went to the river to catch fish, but now fishermen have to be careful. If they don't hold the fish firmly, they might get their fingers bitten off by omnivorous fish. Because the Kong family is on the east side of the sea, the fishing industry is very developed, but in recent years, this industry has declined rapidly. It's not that the fish have no sales, but that they can't go out to sea at all. At this time, the barbarians in the north didn't know what animals' knuckle bones they took to make a group of ferocious fish scatter. It seems that this is a backup plan they have prepared long ago. Kingayan River is the main river in Dashishan, running from northwest to southeast. In order to pass through this river, Huazhong even built a sturdy arch bridge. And now, this Kingayan River is the water source for the main force of P5092 to get water. The nearest riverbank to the camp is only 300 meters away. When P5092 ordered the main force to attack Longton Canyon, the entire camp of the fire main force became empty. There was no lively scene in the past. From the outside, it even felt a little deserted. The fire main force spent several days to force all the barbarians into Longton Canyon. Now it was time to reap the fruits. In order to ensure that the main force could complete the crushing encirclement of the barbarians, P5092 almost sent out the cooking squad. Therefore, when dawn came, no one noticed that the danger was approaching. Outside Longton Canyon, the mortar unit of the fire force had carried out the final debugging and aiming, and those passages that could enter and exit the canyon had all been built with temporary fortifications and blocked by heavy machine guns. In this way, the fire force can ensure that no barbarian in the canyon can leave alive. The frontline commander reported to P5092 through the communication equipment, "Sir, all deployments have been completed. Now we are waiting for the reconnaissance company to confirm the number of barbarians in the canyon. Call the reconnaissance company back and open fire directly. Cover the entire canyon with firepower. Plow it first," P5092 said calmly in the command vehicle in the camp. Mortar shells are not worth money. They didn't use them in the mountains before because they couldn't determine the location of the barbarians. What they have been doing these days is to gather all the barbarians together and then kill them all with artillery fire. The scope of Longton Canyon is not large, and it is not difficult to carry out firepower coverage. Of course, there will still be many barbarians who survive after the firepower coverage, but at that time, the combat effectiveness of these people will also drop sharply. The next moment, the frontline commander hung up the communication equipment and directly ordered the mortar unit, "Open fire and carry out firepower coverage of the entire area." This time, the barbarians are no longer facing the small-scale hunting and killing of guerrillas, but the powerful hot weapons that the Central Plains people really rely on for survival. The explosions in the canyon were mixed with screams and roars. It was not until this moment that the frontline commander was relieved. The reconnaissance plan was stopped before the reconnaissance company infiltrated the canyon, so the Spark troops were not sure whether the barbarians were really in there. Although the plan was very careful, P-5092 had commanded the troops to block the entire mountain step by step, but before getting a conclusive answer, no one dared to really guarantee that they really forced the barbarians into the canyon. As long as there is a 1% chance of an accident, there will still be changes in the real war. And now, the frontline commander can finally breathe a sigh of relief. When the artillery fire gradually stopped, the frontline commander immediately ordered the infantry regiment to enter the canyon to complete the final harvest. The infantry regiment put on gas masks, and then they used grenade launchers to shoot a large amount of tear gas into the canyon before they began to advance. The canyon was filled with a faint white smoke, and the Spark soldiers plunged into the canyon in a tight formation. But just 30 minutes after the infantry regiment entered, an anxious report immediately sounded in the communication channel. The number of barbarians is wrong, there are only more than 100 barbarians here. The frontline commander frowned. Are you sure? Confirmed, the barbarians who survived the artillery fire in the canyon have all been captured. According to the information given by the reconnaissance sequence before, there should be about 300 people in this canyon, but there are only more than 100 here. Interrogate them directly. The frontline commander shouted in the communication channel, interrogate them directly in the canyon and ask them where the others are. But at this time, a barbarian with his arms tied knelt on the ground and spit out a mouthful of blood. He sneered, in order to catch us, they don't even want their homes. The officer of the infantry regiment suddenly said in his heart that it was not good. He shouted in the communication channel, the barbarians may be raiding our camp. Sir, should we return to help? The frontline commander's face changed, and he shouted to the communicator, connect me to the command vehicle. But the communicator shook his head, I can't connect. There is no response over there. Outside the camp, hundreds of barbarians climbed up the riverbank like water ghosts. They looked at the camp, which was 300 meters away, and then shook off the water marks on the giant axes in their hands. The leading barbarian sneered, charge, the Expeditionary Corps will remember you. When the general builds a palace on the land of Central Plains, your names will be engraved on the stone tablet at the entrance of the palace. As he said that, he suddenly shouted, long live the Expeditionary Corps. Charge. The next moment, hundreds of barbarians like water ghosts ran wildly, and the heavy footsteps sounded like war drums on the river bank. For ordinary people, a 300-meter sprint takes about 40 seconds, but for these barbarians, it only takes 10 seconds. 10 seconds, for a war that may last for months or years, is as short as a moment. The barbarians have already thought about how to kill all the soldiers in the camp, and they will be the first advanced troops in the Expeditionary Corps to kill the senior commander of the Spark. The leading barbarian rushed faster. He seemed to be the strongest leader among the group of beasts, and his physical fitness was obviously stronger. The next moment, a dazzling searchlight suddenly lit up in front of them. The barbarians blocked the dazzling light with their arms. They could vaguely see an officer in his 30s standing in the camp. He was wearing a military cap and standing with his hands behind his back. This man was P-5092, whom the barbarians wanted to kill the most. In front of P-5092, there was a heavy machine gun position formed by dozens of soldiers. P-5092 laughed loudly and said, you all came from afar. As the landlord, we didn't prepare any gifts. It's really rude. But I can give you a surprise. The barbarian leader was stunned for a moment. Judging from the appearance of the other party, he should have expected that they would attack the camp. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.